7:02, and I'll call the meeting to order. Quite a bit of housekeeping stuff to do, so let's start at the top. Required public notice of this meeting at this time and place has been given. A quorum is present, so I declare the meeting duly constituted. Our first order of business is adoption of the agenda for the meeting. Proposed late items have already been provided to council and the recorder. I believe we all have a copy. So those will be the non-motion items are just taken in adoption of the agenda. There's two late motion items that need majority consent of council to add to the agenda. So I'll ask for a second on both of those together, seeing as they're my motion, so I made it. The one being a letter to the Minister of Finance, and the other one being appointing Glenn Dennison as the village's representative to the DFO workshops. Anybody care to second that one? Thanks, Fred. Any discussion on those? So I'll call the question. Add those two motions to the agenda.
So let's
all in favor?
B3 and 8.
B3 and 2, correct.
Gotcha. I'm just trying to get everything sorted out. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we haven't approved the agenda yet, so there's one more kick at the can there. This is the motion to, because they are motions, they're late motions. You need to provide public notice of motions. But if council agrees, we can do it late. So I'm calling the question. All in favor and opposed? That carries. Are there any further late items, whether motions or not? Peter, did I just hear something there?
I don't know. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I've got an additional item under 7C.
Okay, let's just wait until we talk about the late items. So some of them have just been distributed. Does anybody wish time to review them before determining if they're willing to add them, or are you good with them as they stand, having glanced at them as they came across the table?
I'm fine.
Okay, so no review time necessary, so we'll proceed to approval of the agenda.
Sorry.
I'll be with you in a moment there, Kimosabi. I'll just read my script here.
In respect of what you've just been doing now.
Okay, sure, sorry.
So with respect to one of those items, I wasn't sure whether or not you wanted to have additional materials from the Ministry of Finance with respect to the speculation tax.
Well, we're not going to review them now because we've looked at all the late materials, so we'll just do it in the item.
Right.
Okay. So what else do we have to add to the agenda?
7C.
7C.
And if we call it Village Concerts Partnering Agreement.
That's unfinished business. Okay. Village Concerts.
And I apologize for not bringing copies of an amended agreement, but I can explain what the changes are.
Fine. I think we've seen the universal emails going around on the topic, so we're all relatively up to speed on that one. Okay. Anything else? I had nothing to add to the agenda. So with that single amendment, that's it, Peter? Speak now.
Yes, I think so. Other than we're substituting a schedule in one of the bylaws.
Fine. That was provided before, so we've seen it.
Yep.
Okay. Ready for the question? This is for adoption of the agenda as amended. All in favour? And opposed? That carries. Public participation?
Yep.
Neville?
Last council meeting, there was a discussion about EPAs. And I took away from the meeting council approving a resolution to go back and use the existing bylaws where possible to simplify, keep things simple, simplify the process. So I took away. And then I saw the mayor's update, weekly update from the mayor's desk, effectively apologising for delaying the whole process. Was not what I walked out of the room expecting to happen, and at risk of completely oversimplifying the thing. We have an existing building bylaw, bylaw 234, which allows for single residential building permits on RS1 properties. It also includes the ability for secondary suites. That's in place and enforced, and I thought that's what we're going back to. We also have a new zoning bylaw that was approved that allows for, under certain conditions, properties to be subdivided into 2 RS1 properties.
2 or more, yeah.
2 or more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which assumes that, to my thinking was then, well then you have a subdivision bylaw, you have 2 RS1 properties, you have a building permit bylaw, go forth and do so. That same bylaw allowed for cottages to be built under certain conditions in place of secondary suites. So to my mind, walking out of the meeting, I thought, well, subdivisions, cottages, all the people that are concerned about a simple renter is going to trigger some sort of DPA, all of that goes away, and all you're left to deal with is multi-residential. And as I said, I'm sure I've oversimplified it. But that's what I took away, and I thought people were getting out of that. Doesn't seem to be that's where it's going. And I know it's not on the discussion topic tonight, but I just thought I'd make that point. I thought that, and I think lots of people expected that was the outcome of that resolution, but it doesn't seem to be where things are going.
Okay, that's a far bigger topic that we can address in public participation, and it deserves far deeper discussion. I do know that everything will come out in the wash, but to give you a sort of a high-level answer at this stage, that is, everything is correct what you said, but it is missing consideration of geotechnical, what do you want to call it, inspection?
Geohazard conditions that may still need to be assessed for any given application, whether it's a building permit or a subdivision application, and those provisions are under the Community Charter and the Land Title Act. We also will still have to bring forward an amendment to the OCP to provide specific statements and map designations dealing with those conditions and restrictions.
Just to stop you there, Peter.
Yeah.
And the reason it's not in the OCP today is because that was an oversight. It should have been, or is that new?
I don't know when those provisions came into the Community Charter.
But they're there now.
I think they've been there for a while. But yeah, I don't know if it was an oversight or whatever. But
Okay.
it's something that is an obligation that we need to address.
So that is a fairly significant thing. So the proposition, as I best understand it now, not having because the policy hasn't been promulgated, is that we will cover off that kind of stuff with a policy. I'll also remind you that, remind us all, in fact, that geohazard assessment was always required as part of the building permit process. And so this is no less or more sophisticated than that. It's maybe the only thing that, correct me again if I'm wrong, Peter, is it's now going to be covered under a policy so that everybody's operating to the same set of rules, knows what to expect and what not to expect. I take your point very well, and I want to be absolutely sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves. Perhaps again, I don't know if I'd say that we were ahead of ourselves, but if it's any comfort at this stage, very early stage, we don't. Peter hasn't put pen to paper yet to start even thinking about what the heads would be on a policy. I'll undertake to make sure that you're aware of everything, every step along the way, as the rest of the village. But I'll take particular care because you're interested. Your input's very valuable. So that's, if we can leave it at that now. It's not a fob off. We haven't got anything going yet.
Yeah, well, when you have a seat, page 10 of 118, the minutes, which condensed an hour and a half's conversations into 2 paragraphs and a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
That's simplicity.
Yeah, I did read that.
Okay, and I think, so that's in the theme that you were talking about.
Yeah, no, I take your point very well. That's not what you took away. I don't think that there's a disparity between the two, but there is a need for a formal policy to cover off the geohazard inspection requirement, and there is this new thing, and that is the OCP amendment that still has to take place. And Peter doesn't like me using the term housekeeping, but if nothing else, it is fleshing out the OCP that apparently, from what we understand, should have been done some time ago. Should have always been in there.
But I guess just the point I'm making is the RS1 exists. If someone came in nowadays, right now, wanted to build in RS1, these places, these policies in place for them to work to. Granted, you want to put an additional policy, it's not going to hold up that process. But I do understand the multi-residential, the higher level of risk that you want to put on, that's a different thing. It may be a different beast. And I think you could quite easily separate the two and deal with the simple ones and get them done. That's my thing.
I think you've heard that council hasn't formulated a policy yet, so they'll have to do that in terms of how they deal with single-family lots versus multifamily. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what you probably also took away from my piece was, council is champing at the bit to handle some of this demand. I mean, there's people out there with residents who want to subdivide, and I don't need to tell you the community benefits for all of that sort of thing. So, we want to get this thing going as quickly as possible. Thanks, Neville. Any other public participation? Seeing none, we'll move to delegations. And delegation, Anise Bedford, welcome. Hello.
I'm Anise. I've lived here my whole life, and I always took part in all the events that they offered here for kids, such as the Easter egg hunt and just everything. And growing up, I kind of slowly noticed that there's less things for teenagers to do around here. And so basically, I rented the hall for May 5th, 2018, which is next weekend. And I was hoping to throw an event for my grad year, because we're all graduating this year. And I wanted to provide a safe environment, basically, for us all to get together and have a good time. So I was hoping to have a dance that I wanted to take place from 8 to 11 p.m., because that's when we get started and have lights and all that. And I was hoping to get the bylaw lifted for the 3 hours. The reason I chose 8 to 11 is because A, it needs to be dark. B, the last bus out of Lions Bay is at 11 o'clock, and I was hoping to call the Blue Bus Company and get them to send a big one so I could clear everyone out by then, so that there's no kids running around the street and everything. I've also talked to security companies, Security World. They gave me a quote, so it would be very contained, very safe, no funny business or anything like that. I just basically want a safe environment for my grad class to have fun together, because I feel like we're lacking that around here. So I was just wondering if maybe I could get that lifted.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll open it up to the table for questions.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.
So, staff, what council is opining here is the relaxation of the noise bylaw and that only. Staff, Susan, I'm actually looking at you on this one. Staff have the rest of it in hand in terms of hall deposits and certainty on.
It's been looked at. We haven't got all the paperwork yet, but unless it's looking after it.
Fine.
He knows what
Okay, so I know we can leave that in your
all the
hands.
information there.
So all that touches council is a resolution to relax the noise bylaw, which is what? Please remind us, Peter.
I don't have the
Stops
section,
at 10,
I don't
I
have
think.
the section in hand, but
I mean, what are we relaxing? The time or the decibel level or the what?
I thought it was 10, but when I went to the office, they said it said 20, so I was like 8 p.m. So
Okay, so it's either,
it's either 8 or 10.
okay, but neither of those work for you because you want 11. Have you talked to any of the neighbors?
Oh, you mean the people down there?
Yeah.
Oh, not yet. I thought this would be the first place to go, but I guess I would go there.
Okay,
Is that?
well, I'm asking,
Well, pardon the flattery, but I'm really quite impressed that you thought enough to call the Blue Bus to get transportation out of here. So I'm thinking, if you're thinking that detailed, you probably got all your
I have
ducks in a row.
someone that does this for a living. He used to live here, actually, Greg Senko. I don't know if any of you know him, but he's working with me, and Mr. Dickinson, who's in teaching law and stuff, is helping me with insurance and everything. So I have a lot of people backing me, making sure that this goes smoothly if it does go. So I thought every little
I used to
detail.
teach my kids to swim.
Yeah.
And you used to babysit my kids.
Yeah, he wants to help more and be here, but obviously there's the whole scope and it's kind of shocking.
Okay, so the proposition is to relax the noise bylaw or until 11 o'clock. Is that satisfactory
I
resolution?
think so.
So I'll make that motion. Can I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favour? And opposed? That carries. You got it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Denise. See you later.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to
Look up the cats.
Sure.
Just not your big one.
Bye.
Approval of the minutes of April 10th. And that starts on page 7. Can I have a motion to approve these minutes?
Yes.
Thanks. And a second. Discussion.
Minor one for me. This is on page 10 of 19, and it's only because it's the DPAs, and it's the second paragraph. And it's the second line of the second paragraph at the end, and it goes, and other reports considered while contemplated.
What about it?
I'm not sure whether considered should be deleted or not. Maybe I read this without having a copy. Perhaps on other reports. Maybe I'm being picky. I withdraw.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fine to me,
Okay.
but unless I'm missing something.
Nope.
Fred?
Well, the curious thing, without talking about this, I came up with that one too, because I went back to the original, and this is verbatim of what was written down there for the proposal. But as I looked over it, it said, and other reports considered while contemplating DPAs.
Didn't read well to me.
It didn't read well to me either, because I think what it should have been something like that while DPAs were being contemplated, past tense. It almost sounds like it could be taken two ways, that we're still contemplating DPAs the way it's written. But I understand though, it was, all these reports were considered while we were
Let's get it crystal clear. Why don't we say while DPAs were being contemplated?
that works for me.
Fine.
Yeah?
Yep. Thank you.
So.
While
welfare
DPAs were
and
being-
other reports considered and while.
No, considered while DPAs were being contemplated.
Okay.
But the catch to that one though, these are the minutes, and what is recorded here was actually what we voted on. So does that violate minute taking?
Peter? This is not the resolution. This is a record of the meeting. The resolution will have to stand unless we want to back and forth it. But
Well, oh yeah, okay, so sorry.
it's a more accurate reflection of the discussion. I think it's not the
No,
resolution.
that is the resolution. So we have
Oh,
no
is it?
seconded, and then that, and then that, yeah. So the
Oh,
fat paragraph above is the summary,
Mhm.
which we can play around with.
Oh, I missed the
But
second.
the actual resolution, if that's what was actually said,
Oh
then
no, then we can't change it. We'll just have to.
Live with it.
Yeah, we'll just have to wordsmith
It's
it.
fine.
Fair enough.
Okay, thanks. Good catch. Fred, looks like you got more.
No, that was it. I just wrote a lot on it.
Because you were working it out. Okay, under item 13B on the next page, is that notation, the meeting was recessed at 9:28, is that in the right place? We first moved seconded that the meeting be recessed, and then we recessed it. Shouldn't that go below the resolution?
yeah.
Okay. You get that? Yeah. And then on page 13 of the package, I'd like to change that whole thing. I'll just read it out on the council remuneration. As we know, incorrectly presented, with the best of intentions, these things take on a life of their own. So I want to get this right, and I would prefer that to say that CFO Rook advised council that per bylaw, council's honoraria increase with inflation. 2017 inflation was 2.12%. Therefore, an increase on the next pay in this amount will be retroactive to January 1, 2018. And CFO Rook will bring a report to a future meeting. What report would that be?
Oh, regarding the loss of the 1/3 tax-free
Regarding
status.
the loss of the municipal officer's allowance. Okay, I didn't even get that part. So that's what I'd prefer it to say, because that's actually, A, it's not a salary, B, it's, everybody get that enough to say okay on that one?
What did you want to do with the last sentence?
CFO Rook will bring a report to a future meeting regarding the loss of the municipal, can't read my writing, the municipal officer's allowance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Okay, so that's good with that one. And then down under the annual drinking water quality report, I don't think it was downfall, it was downside, the word you used, no?
I'm
remember. Downside?
I think you said downside.
Yeah.
Downside. And
Instead of downfall?
Yeah.
and then under the C1 council, PM, PWM, Jaffa, blah blah blah, and that the culprit is unknown. Period. We're not in the business of catching culprits and maybe having leads or not. I just want to say the culprit's unknown.
Where were you?
Where was it?
Council McLaughlin's village on Ocean View Road, C1.
Bottom of 14 of it.
The culprit is unknown.
Full stop. And then last one I promise, and that is under item 10 bylaws, the soil deposit bylaw. That resolution moved and seconded and carried that the soil deposit bylaw be read of first and second. Are those the readings? By so resolving, is that the reading?
Yeah,
Okay, is that how we always do it?
generally speaking, I believe.
Okay.
How else
It
could
seem-
you?
Well, it seems to me that we resolved that we're going to read them a first and second time. But did we?
Yeah, no, that's what you do.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
So that by
That's-
resolving to
that's
do
the
it, you've done it.
That's the standard wording for.
Okay, fine. I didn't bother to go back and check in the previous ones, so I just want to ask that. Okay, that's all I had. Anybody else? Okay, so we've nodded around the table on the amendments. There's a question on the table. All in favour as amended and opposed, that carries. Business arising.
This is for Peter, and it kind of knowing business arising or unfinished business, and that was on page 9 of 118, which was the beach park late close. And I thought we were going to have that in front of us until it was resolved one way or the other.
On the actual public consultation. I mean, the
Yeah,
poll.
And
As
so-
in the unfinished business?
So I'm thinking that should be unfinished business.
No, I think what I take what you're saying is that should have appeared in the box on the first page of our agenda.
Yes,
Yeah, it should have.
Okay, so
thank you.
should we... You'll take care of that in the minutes of the meeting. Right, so we can amend the agenda if you want.
It'll be captured when.
I think
Yeah.
that what you ought to do is just pass a motion that item be added to
The agenda.
The follow-up action
So
items
recommended.
from previous meetings.
So moved. Okay, so does everybody know what we're talking about? Can I have a second on that one? And any discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay, good catch. Thanks, Ron.
Well, it's becoming daily more and more, and those pesky residents, they like to stay out late.
Yes. And we've got
Thank you,
signs that
Peter.
have to be made that give the appropriate time.
Sounds like a good time to go on a holiday.
Already.
Oh, it's flying. Okay, no further matters arising. Let's move on to unfinished business. We'll start with number 32. I can report that slightly more work has been done there in that I have half drafted an email to the stakeholders, but nothing is going to happen until Peter gets back, so there's no particular time crunch. I guess the next one's mine as well. I have done not that. And I'm not sorry. I will. Peter, 37.
That's done.
Done?
And
Was that just correspondence?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. So you got that, Sean? 37 is done? 38?
38. I've had a conversation with the schools, with Wade Hickey from school district, and because it pertains to bylaw enforcement, more or less, I'd like to bring that to closed for discussion.
Fine. We'll do that. So you want to leave it on the list though?
Sure, until it's
Until such time,
resolved,
okay.
yeah.
Fine, okay, with that we'll move on to item 7B, and that is IRRs. Those we will find on page 19. for council's delectation.
Well, it's to be added,
Okay.
so it's fine.
Oh, well, no, you're right. Should we not?
Okay.
Let's do it that now.
Sorry, what?
The
Beach Park.
the beach park time. Because that should have been in unfinished business.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So I think, let's just quickly do this. I mean, I guess the first legit opportunity is the May long weekend. People may want to stay later if it's sunny and warm. So it would
Yeah,
be-
the issue is the consultation with neighbors, right? So how is that done? On a radius basis or?
Yeah, I confess that we haven't done anything in that respect yet.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to
But,
delegate in the next
yeah.
6 hours. If we're going for the record, that is.
So we did have a conversation, very brief conversation with staff that we should be looking at areas around the beach park along Lions Bay Avenue, up Lions Bay Avenue, Seaview and Cloudview in terms of consultation, as well as the marina, I suppose.
And potentially the people on the end at Lower Kelvin. If the wind's right, you can hear everything there because they're high up on the bluff.
Mhm.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I hadn't thought of that.
yeah, at least those 6, 7, 8 on the first range there, I would say, or not. I mean,
Periwinkle?
yeah, periwinkle.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear what you said. Yes, we can do that.
Well, we kind of need to, right? Because
Yeah.
the weather is proceeding apace.
So taking your comment about the wind carrying the people on the bluff at Kelvin, how far the other way do you think is necessary to?
I wouldn't think much beyond sort of here-ish. Maybe that first pass. That probably should do it.
Mhm.
These guys, I mean, this is only.
That's a long way away.
Well, it's up the hill. The sun goes
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, exactly.
Will we use that road allowance as a boundary line? And then periwinkle?
Something like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I would say all the people on Lions Bay Ave all the way up to the highway. I think there's only 6. How would you do it? Just a letter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Saying, let us know if you object.
We got a request from community group to extend. It'll be detailed if you want, we can run it by you.
Mhm.
Is it? So remind me. Is it for particular events during the summer, or is it
It's the wholesale.
the wholesale? Yeah. Every day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll have to be explained because you could.
We'll put a letter together.
People have a day job.
Wanna do
On a
something
Wednesday.
on a weekly thing?
I can mention it.
Oh, that
Yeah,
would be big,
that's-
say, you get it in your mailbox, this is why.
In theory, we should take comments from everyone.
Yeah.
You don't get to not participate if you don't live in a certain area.
It's a recommendation on behalf of the beach park committee, on behalf of the residents, so,
So we would. The proposition is to extend the park opening hours until 11 p.m. 7 days a week.
Would this be a trial year, or is this for good?
Well, let's just say on a trial basis, and if it's not working, we'll change it.
yeah.
But either way, just to the end of September, right? Or is it the end of August? There's it says
Um,
here.
But when the bylaw guy says sayonara,
Well, nobody's going to want to stay after that because
Yeah,
it's too
that's
cold. Yeah. So what I will do is I will run the text by you guys so that it harmonizes with the letters that you will send out subsequently, and that will go in the Friday piece.
okay. And we're gonna talk about the bylaw officer later on, you might wanna incorporate a sentence on that too.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's because if the park closes at 11, the bylaw officer knocks off at what time?
Well, we're kind of waiting to figure this out
Yeah,
so that
before
we
you
can
know
tell
it,
them what
yeah.
their hours are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly, he or she needs to be
There.
there sometime after closing.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right, let's move on to IRRs then. So the first one is ID number 141. I believe this one can be taken out because it's been superseded by the community signage endeavour that council resolved budget for, and that's under work right now. I sent a proposed basis for an RFP, Peter, yesterday. Just quickly tell us where that stands.
I didn't see that. I've been waiting for you to send, you said that you were working on some stuff regarding the community signage.
Yeah.
And I was going to be working on the RFP, and I was waiting to see what you had sent.
Yeah.
You hadn't sent anything.
I sent.
You did, yeah.
I did
You
send.
did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got it.
Well, seeing as you're going to be putting the RFP together, well, it's not going to sit for a month.
3.5 weeks.
3.5 weeks. Okay, so
Sorry, I didn't see it.
no, that's fine. No, I understand. So, Nai,
That's
you've got
6
it.
hours.
Yeah, I'll put the RFP together, but
I don't want to use the term quick and dirty, but you know, it's fairly simple RFP for a very a nominal amount of money. That's fairly simple in scope and expectation. So, it's not a major tender. It's a level 2 purchasing policy thing. Just remind us, the only reason we're putting it out for RFP is because we don't think that we can get what we need for less than $2,000, which would just be a purchase. Okay, so I would suggest that one just comes out. Okay. Ron, yours is the next one.
I'm going to guess that the concrete barriers probably have been pursued, so as long as it's got a stakeholder place, I'm fine.
We had a conversation about this on Monday, and the expectation is that we will probably not, well, we'll probably have some superfluous excess barriers when we put the fence up in the parking lot at Lions Bay Beach Park, and possibly they could be utilized for a dedicated pathway up Lions Bay Avenue, was one thought, so.
And these would be the low ones.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
the thought.
Yeah, slightly less obtrusive. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would
But a much more detailed plan needs to be
Yeah.
put in place, and a meeting needs to happen still on May 9th, hopefully.
meeting with who?
You and CN
with the
and
CN
Niall.
people. Yeah, yeah.
And I'll be there with you.
If I could get the recorder to fill in another sentence or two in the right-hand box, so we're all,
Yeah, so something to the effect that,
something's,
barriers are
Moving
under
on.
consideration.
that'd be
Okay.
great.
Is that good for you?
Yes, and that's good news, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's I wholeheartedly support and support
Well,
that.
it's the right time to do it too. Good stuff.
Okay, 150 is mine. That's been done. That can come out. 151 is the subject of a resolution in this meeting, so I suggest it can come out of IRRs. Whether we choose to do it or not, I don't want to presuppose, but it's there for council's decision. Okay, the test.
I'm getting close.
Okay, good. So we'll leave that one where it is. The notice board.
So we can move it. However, staff have considered and believe it's the best location right now. The walking path is on that side of the street, and we're monitoring people walking back and forth on that side of the street daily, and they walk right by the bulletin
But
board.
do they stop and read it?
Some do.
Yeah. Whereas if it's across the street, it won't be front and center. The other point is that if you're walking down Center Road from Bayview or the school, you use the fire department side as your walking path, and you come down, you cross at the stop sign on Center, and the notice board is right there. So it's in a prime location where it's going to get the most traffic. If we move it to the bus shelter, it won't be on the walking path.
Yeah, I agree that is the walking path. I don't see people stopping and reading. Why? Because the fog line is 2 feet from the notice board and traffic is whipping by. What we could potentially do is put a barrier there, but I suspect people will hit that barrier. Yeah, I mean, it's only with the advent of the bus shelter that there's any call for it at all. In my observation, which is not, I mean, you can't actually see the notice board from any window here, so we wouldn't actually know if people are stopping and reading it. But I never see people there, and I drive past that corner all the time because traffic is too close.
I have to say that I've never felt unsafe standing there reading stuff on it. And it is on the way to the store too. So if you're coming down and going to the store and you want to check out, see if there's something there. Hey, I wonder if anybody lost their cat because I saw one hanging around or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, typically I would suggest maybe I put in the mayor's message, but these kind of poll type questions, I get 1 and 2 responses. I'm not going to get any kind of feedback that way.
Doesn't everybody have to go to the mail room?
We do have a message board in there.
There's
The
a notice
village
board there.
has,
So there's
a notice board, yeah.
duplication there.
Yeah.
There's multiple, yeah.
The other concern, just with the bus stop, we felt the only people who would read it would be people taking the bus. And no one else would
Because they're not
see it or
walking
look
that
at
side.
it.
Yeah,
I mean, they
fair
might,
enough.
when they're waiting for the bus, they might look at it, but that's not quite as much exposure.
Okay, so what do you think on that one?
Well, I can say that the Cross Creek location where it is right now does get a lot of attention. It's very noticeable as you're coming down. And my experience with it is that years ago I put up a poster for a seminar and somebody set fire to it, so I know it's getting noticed there.
They saw it, whether they liked it's a whole nother issue. Yeah, yeah.
We don't want our bus stop to burn down.
I've read that one, I can light it. I read this one, I can light it. Yeah, absolutely not. Luckily we've got a metal one. Okay, so I'm prepared to, I mean, if I just see the nods around the table, just drop it. Yeah, leave it where it is. Fine, okay, that one can come out, Shauna. Power to the bus shelter.
The order for power was placed a while ago. We're just waiting for parts. There has to be a special cabinet affixed to the hydro pole, so it's on order. We had originally been told that the bus shelter lighting had a timer on it, but that was the solar power model. So we will advise the electricians to put in a timer as well while they're doing the power.
My only request there is that I've had a little bit, I wouldn't even say feedback, but an expression of interest from the residents across the road that they don't want the light shining in their eyes the whole night. So it has to go off at a known time. And I think I suggested 11. That's the last bus on Fridays and Saturdays, which, by the way, I'm trying to get extended to Sundays. There's also an annunciator program coming. I've asked us to go to the top of the list to say when the next bus is coming. Our new bus, the 262, apparently will get GPS-enabled data or something other, so it will actually work. But
It's the 262,
the what used to be the C12,
same little bus.
same bus,
They just renamed it.
different
New
number.
number.
I couldn't get a straight answer on why, but I think it's something to do with making it usable with cell phones more.
Okay.
They want the app to. I mean, you can still type a C with a cell phone, but I don't think there was any particular thing. I think it was just to normalize the data. They didn't want letters in their bus routes. I was expecting pushback because in Lions Bay we don't call it the bus, we call it the C12, but I haven't heard a peep. But those notices that went up were not by accident, I can assure you. Those went back and forth with the mayor of Lions Bay for at least 2 weeks before they got the wording right. Okay, so let's leave that one on there just as a reminder. The next one is mine as well. So here, just next to the fire hall,
Yep.
you know what I'm talking about? That was just hacked down. It was hacked down with very sharp non-feng shui stuff. Can we just... No, because everybody goes by it and it looks like hell. I've had at least half a dozen comments on it.
Green it up.
Green it up.
Yep.
Maybe trim down the stumps a little further so they can't be seen behind the ferns and the silal. You got it?
Yep.
Thanks. That one can come out. You got it on your list?
Yep.
Okay, Shauna, we can take 156 away. Nameplate at the desk. This is also as a result of especially new people in the village. They say, I don't know who they're talking to. They come in, no name tags, no nameplate.
So we're looking into nameplates.
Great. I'll leave that one in there for now. This next one is going to be addressed today. I saw it as one of the late items. So,
One of the handouts.
yeah, one of the
passed
handouts.
For the on-table, your
Yeah.
reports, so that was
Do you want to do that?
Everyone stand
Is that scheduled for now? We discuss it? Or is there some other place in the agenda for
I
it?
think it's here.
Okay, here, okay.
I just wanted to remind everyone what
It's this double one.
it's the big one. Yeah.
So what are the 2 pages, Pam?
It's what you sent me.
Oh, is that all?
It's yeah.
So this has been updated with 2017 numbers?
No, you put the 2017 in. I haven't done anything to it because it hasn't officially become an IRR yet. I mean, we've talked about it.
Oh, I
but,
see.
yeah.
Okay, so Ron,
So
this
this
really was
is-
yours, that I then took it on myself to produce the schedule.
Well, thank you, because after 7 years of retirement, my Excel skills are down the crapper. So, thank you. You know, I think this has just come on, I guess, if it's fine with you, Carl, I know you've done it. I'd like to let this sit and table and mull on it. I really didn't give it enough time to think about it. And you put a lot of work into it, so I don't want to just cruise past it.
It's fine by me. I mean, I'll just remind you, I think it's stated here. Yeah, I guess, you know, the high-level question that I want to answer is, we've never budgeted, not in living memory, any transfer to reserve. And yet we have over $1 million in reserves. That represents taxed for uncompleted projects. Nothing wrong with it, but I think it behooves us to track it.
So I saw 2 components of it. I mean, there's this detailed piece, but then there's your last sentence about what's in reserves. And I was planning to bring a reserve reconciliation to the next meeting because that's when we're presenting the financial
Yep.
statements, and that'll be the reserves per the financial statements. For example, one of the things that goes to is the gas tax funds are required to go to reserves, so that's about $300,000 of it. And you can show sort of a higher level of what's made up of the reserves. And then this is the one piece. These are things that we may have taxed for and either rebudgeted or not spent. I did go back and try to look at prior years, but like this year, the 4th quarter review, I did
It
this.
wasn't presented in a way we could use it.
Well, even myself, since I've been here, the 4th quarter review I just did was the most detailed I've ever done, and I deliberately did an analysis of the rebudgets. Even when I went back to last year's, it was a little hard to pull that from. But there is another component of the surplus, and that's just the over and under budgets in the regular categories. For example, payroll. This is just a small example, but payroll we budgeted for council this year. We were favorable because we were short a counselor. And every account has either favorable or unfavorable variances. So it's not just things
Not
we
just
budgeted
assets.
for and didn't do. It's a big component of it, as you can remember from the 4th quarter review, was just, that's why I analyzed why we were favorable or unfavorable in different categories. We were really favorable in maintenance because we didn't get the grant for the CN, so we didn't do them. So that was, but then we're rebudgeting
But
that
that's
for
always
something
just a
else.
deferred thing. I mean,
Well, not all of it is though. Like I didn't defer your salaries. I mean, we just absorbed that favorable variance because we only had to pay 3 counselors for most of the year.
honoraria.
Well, we're still paying honorarium. I didn't say salaries, I said pay.
Ron, it's your call. I mean, is this something useful?
It's something useful, but you know, I don't want it to, if it's fine with everyone else, I'd just like to thank you for your effort and table it for the minute. I'd like to mull on it, because to me, there's a lot of data here, but it doesn't address your key piece of how did the magic number to the $1 million surplus come. And from the top, I mean, I can think of probably 2/3 of it just in roughness. I mean, in my own experience without having the financials in front of me, I think during Councillor Bain and my tenure under Mayor Broughton, we consistently showed surpluses from a variety of things, of unfinished projects, underspending in personnel costs, and other allocations that didn't go. There was also a lending situation that boosted the reserves as well too. So I think just off that, this doesn't come to that easy straight path to where you want to go.
No, although you can plug that number at the top for all the previously undetailed reserves,
Yeah.
and that's your
So-
starting number.
So I think if it's fine, I'd like to work with Pam over this over the next month or two and come to a clearer path.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I believe this represents slightly imprecise taxation. As you know, we've done some pretty substantial tax increases, but I don't want to just go to the well all the time. You know, we have to be efficient on this. So if we didn't need some of this stuff and it can be determined through this analysis, that's great. Or maybe this is not forward-looking enough. I don't know. So let's leave it with you for now.
It's a grocery cart of data.
Yeah,
Really
yeah,
what it amounts
true,
to. It
yeah.
doesn't give you the straight line to retail.
Okay, so we'll leave that one going. What I would suggest is we change the owner of 158 to McLaughlin. please.
Thank you.
Shauna, or requester, the third column.
Fine.
I just wanted to know, were we ever consulted on the liquor primary license? Just for those of you who don't know, because I didn't know until I asked, liquor primary means you sell liquor at an establishment as the primary thing and food as the secondary, and a food primary is if you're a restaurant with liquor service. So we have a liquor primary licensee down the road.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether the consultation that we did get from the province was just for the sale, the retail sale.
The rural
of
liquor outlet.
The rural, or whether it included the liquor primary license as well. Is there a particular aspect of this that you're
The only
looking for?
issue is that there is one proposition that the province is looking at is using liquor primary outlets as cannabis outlets.
I think we're mixing terms perhaps. then,
Maybe.
Because, liquor primary attached to an eating establishment, you're not gonna be selling necessarily cannabis from a restaurant.
But I think we sort of we checked it. I asked you to check, and you have checked, and our bylaws are, I wouldn't say watertight. There's some work to be done, but they would trump any retail outlet for cannabis. I'm reading that's the community's will. No cannabis retail in Lions Bay. So I think that's where it came from. So this all came up at some seminar I went to. That's my question. I think.
Well, the other aspect of the question is whether you want to expand the definition of retail to include storage, facilities. You could have a home warehousing operation and
Mail order type.
delivery, mail order type thing. I mean, do you want to include that on your definition of retail so that it's not allowed either? Because that was something that was identified to me in terms of a quick and simple amendment to what we already have.
Because we don't ban businesses. Home businesses are completely allowed.
And we don't have business licenses.
But
So
we don't have
business
to.
licenses is the other way that you
It's
deal
just
with
not all caught
regulation.
within the two kilometers from a school or something like that.
No, there are still, as I say, those aspects of it that are slightly open wedge in the door. So the question is whether you want to close the door on the other aspects of retail to include home-based business operations as described.
Well, for me, I'm fine if, Peter, you're got lots on your plate. Carl, you weren't trying to do the liquor license, you're trying to do the cannabis, so
True.
I'd restyle this and
Yeah.
if
Let's
you would agree with.
let's just remove that one for now and put a separate item on as a higher level report, not an IRR level report, on our business situation. Because there's all these things that we think we know,
But the way the feds are moving so quickly on this and stumbling, my recommendation would be you just tuck this to the front of our agenda package and let it get styled on, let's call it cannabis growing and retailing.
Okay, so would you care to make a motion that staff bring a report on our preparedness for the coming cannabis storm?
Okay, it's a twofer then, if this is fine with Peter then. So my recommendation is we delete this off the IRR, restyle it as unfinished business, which would be number 39, if I'm, well, 40, I guess.
We'll go in the minutes of next, of this.
Whatever, and so it'd be, call it exploration of cannabis growing, selling,
Let's call it preparation.
preparation.
Maybe that's wrong. That's
Well,
wrong.
it's policy.
Policy's good.
There you go. And I think for something like this, a fairly hard date, I would appreciate a hard date on this, so let's say July this year.
Well, yes, because there will be a situation if we are not with our stake in the ground. What's it
Yeah.
called again, Peter? The grandfathering thing? Non-conforming use.
Well, he's doing it on July the 1st, so I mean,
Well, we'll
It's
see.
not gonna happen.
theoretically.
It's not going to happen.
I know. But I
I've
mean,
written
I'm
down
giving
a
staff some
report
time.
for June because.
Okay, yeah,
I
yeah,
suspect-
but I mean, that's,
I expect that we're looking at an amendment to the zoning bylaw,
Yeah.
albeit a very small amendment, but I think that's probably where we're looking. And so, you know,
That's public hearing.
a couple of readings
Yeah.
and public hearings.
so, and I think unless council members stick their hand up, I think it would be fair to say that our view is fairly draconian on this one in every fashion.
Yeah, and I'll just remind council that, you know, some communities are welcoming the opportunity with open arms. Bowen, for example, is actively seeking cannabis operations. Large, security,
Yeah.
nightmare, I would think, but anyway. Yeah, so I mean, I think the marching, well, we just
So-
need to.
So it's a twofer then?
Yeah.
So, on
Good.
the unfinished and on the motion, seconder? Thank you. All in favor? Good, done. Sorry, Mayor.
I think that's
I-
legit.
I don't want to be here till midnight, let's go.
Okay, so we will remove 159, Shauna.
Yep.
160. There's a bolt up there that we don't need. I think it was a library thing. No, I don't know. Yeah. Can we just do
On the
it?
list. While we're on this, I took a tour around on the outside. The one door, which would be the primary door for the new council chambers, looks like it's been greeted by the Brazilian soccer team.
Yeah, we know about that. So what
Okay.
do you want to do about that? Given that doors cost $7,000 each.
Without the
think
We
that
bolts.
did have windows and doors in the budget,
Yeah.
but it was cut.
Okay.
Yeah, we
I
did
think
cut it.
that-
In fact, Ron, I think it was you cut that.
We'll take a look at that
Yeah,
door.
it might even
Yeah.
just, I think the paint's
I've looked at it
cracked,
before
we
with
could paint
Garth,
it.
and I thought there was, I thought it
We
was on
throw
the
this
list.
into the upgrade.
I thought it was on
and
the list,
To replace?
to scrape it down and repaint it.
No, the veneer is coming off. It's not just a paint
Well,
situation.
yeah, it's-
The door is done.
Yeah,
or we can make a doggy door for Yukon.
We'll see what we can do.
See what you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good enough.
Okay.
And take that bolt off. It's we've got a deadbolt in there and a latch, so it's.
Carl, that's a strike now?
Yes, I'll take that as read. So 160 can come out, Shauna. Okay, so 161, we can remove that as well. Did you notice my funny writing there? I've done half of it with the public works manager with the mostest, and very enlightening it was for both of us, I think. Would you say that, Noe?
Mm-hmm.
You seeing it from community eyes and I seeing it from technical eyes. So we've got,
Pretty cold. There's the door.
I don't think it's the door, it's the air conditioning. I'm loving it.
I know you
But I
are.
didn't think it was going to last.
He's got the air conditioning on.
Oh.
Would you like me to,
Susan could.
Susan?
Not off.
Maybe just
Well,
raise the
it
temperature.
kicks in or it
so-
doesn't kick in, that's,
Oh, there's
Choice.
no, because there's no
No, you can raise
thermostat
the
in there.
temperature, so it has to get a lot warmer before
no,
it'll kick in
don't
again.
turn on the heat. No heat.
Wow.
No, she's
Come on,
raising
look
the
at- look at
temperature
that.
of the air conditioning, so that if it gets
I
really
would
hot,
draw-
it'll come on.
You notice I've given
Walk
up on the
around bare
thermostat in
chest
the
and
council
sheep.
chambers, IRR. It's not even on here
Right.
anymore.
Tick-tock.
Okay, so that went very well. We've still got half the village to do. We'll do that sooner rather than later. But I'm fine with taking that off there now. All kinds of good things arose, mostly to do with signage, something to view sight lines and so on and so forth. So that's good. Nye, would you agree?
Yeah,
we're
absolutely.
jiggy there.
Yeah.
162 is mine as well. Man, I'm
Prolific.
needy, prolific.
And it's done.
Done. Is it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to test it. I'm going to get my sister to test it. 162 off. I'd like to add one more, please, and that is use something nicer than a large boulder to hold open our new $3,500 door, like a doorstop.
Oh, the volleyball guys use a small rock.
There's a rock.
No,
Yay
it's
big.
the size of, half the size of this.
No, this you should see it. Size of a basketball.
It's on the list.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so we didn't. It was on and off the IRR list altogether. So, Shauna, you got 162 off, right? Okay, good. So we're going to move on. Can I have a motion to effect the IRRs as discussed? Peter, you've got the notes.
Yeah, done.
Good, and so does Shauna. That's a motion, Ron. Thank you. In a second. Thanks. Norm, why don't you second anything?
It's cold.
Oh, it's too
He's
cold.
shivering.
That's how you stay warm in here.
Okay, I'll call the
Do you
question.
want a jacket?
You want a jacket? There's a bunch
Oh,
of
no, I'm good
jackets on
now.
the ground.
It's already. It's
The
already.
anticipation of warmth is good enough.
It's already pretty hot.
Yeah.
All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay. We need to up the formality quotient here.
Village concerts.
Village concerts.
Okay, so Tamara came in and saw me this afternoon and has signed the amended agreement. So the amended agreement, basically what it does is it essentially limits our partnership agreement to 2 concerts in the hall and 1 concert in the park with the Eat Together event. The cash contribution stays the same. Included in here is the normal sign-up process for hall rental applications, which includes release of liability, indemnity agreement, etc., serving at right certificate if necessary, special occasion license, all that kind of stuff. The fees are waived because that's part of the in-kind. And damage deposit, of course. For insurance, she will fill out and apply for the insurance through our event insurance program for the 3 concerts, the cost of which will be deducted from the cash portion of the remuneration, unless council wants to increase the cash portion of the remuneration to cover that. The answer is
No, we made the resolution.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'd have to
Yeah.
open it up to everybody.
Okay. And that's essentially the changes. So it's a much simpler agreement, which made her happy, and which makes me happy. The village is not in a situation where we're associated with or involved with in sponsoring house concerts in private homes with no knowledge as to what the conditions are like, whether there's any hazards, with no ostensible insurance in place. And that was what I was not supportive of, and so that exposure is no longer there with this amended agreement.
Good job. Yeah, that's good heads up and thinking things through. So that's a good result. Sounds like. Well done. So it's good to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody.
The only question is, would it remind me what we've pared back?
So previously it was an agreement which incorporated an additional 7 concerts in people's homes throughout the village. Same dollar values. We're not increasing or decreasing the grant amount. And what we're basically doing is disassociating ourselves from a potential liability, which was presenting difficulties in terms of insurability and insurance options. So we still have a great opportunity now to be involved with and support a couple of events in the hall with good musical entertainment and at the park, the Eat Together event. Tamara's very excited and pumped up about it, so I'm sure she's going to find some good entertainers and put on a show.
What about the promotion aspect of it? Will we be able to promote the house portion in the village update?
I told her that we would be promoting the hall and park events.
I guess for same reasons we couldn't really be promoting non-sanctioned events.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, she was okay with that?
Yeah, she understood.
Okay, motion to receive, and a second, all in favour?
So, and to receive and to approve the revised, the amended agreement, because he previously agreed to.
Okay,
to
so
the
we'll take that
agreement,
on faith, so a motion to approve the, did we had seen the agreement before?
Yeah.
Okay, so it would be to rescind that agreement and approve the new one? That's a motion, and a second? All in favour on that one? And opposed, that carries, and then a motion to receive the report. We have a motion and a second, I'll call the question on that one. All in favour, opposed, that carries. Okay, draft 5-year plan report, and then the bylaw comes, the bylaw itself comes
Yes.
later. Page 21, Pam, take it away.
So, this budget, 5-year plan, basically council's approved the 2018 year, and this is, we're required by the community charter to adopt a 5-year plan for the years 2018 to 2022 by May 15th. So this is the 5-year plan that I had prepared. It was a little challenging this year because, as you know, I was waiting for some things to happen which aren't concluded yet, so the capital is still uncertain. So this budget was based on the current information, and the plan is, even though we'll be doing readings of this and adopting it, we know we will have to do a budget amendment. So I think we'll be talking about
You know
that
you
more
say that every year,
closed.
right?
No, I've never said this before, ever. My budgets have been final up until this year. So we will, but in all seriousness, like, we do know we'll have to do a budget
Yeah,
amendment
sure.
for new information that's coming forward. And that's totally acceptable for the community charter. We would do the same thing. I would show the revised budget, and then we would do the 3 readings and adopt, and then we have to file it again with the ministry. So because of that, I have provided a lot of detail. I wanted to show the detail of the 2018 budget again with all of the supplementals in. I haven't done that in the past, so that, because it looks quite different, even though the tax rate stayed the same, all of the supplementals that we had already taxed for now appear in this budget. So one thing I did, which I had never done before, on the second page, which is page 23, I did a breakdown of what the transfers from surplus are.
Yeah.
So on the final version that will be attached to the Schedule A of the bylaw, it's just a lump sum transfer from surplus of 609, and that seems like a really large number. So I've completely reconciled it. The gas tax funding is required to go to a reserve until we spend it. So that's revenue we get, and then it goes to a reserve. Then I had the loan. So the loan was a little unusual. When the loan came in 2017, we showed as revenue. And of course, we've only spent a very small portion of it on the Clean Water Wastewater project. So I'm bringing it back into the budget, and it's $417,000. I mean, this is kind of accounting, but it's just sort of think of it. We received the money, we haven't spent it, so we're using it in the 2018 budget. So I have to bring it in again into the 2018 budget so that we don't tax for money we don't need. And then there was the rebudgets. So I do have a detailed list of all the rebudgets, but there was $296,000 of rebudgets. And then, if you recall, when we agreed to the 3% tax, it wasn't quite enough to cover this year's budget. We just had to draw $5,700 from surplus for that. And then every year I tax, for the first couple of years it was $3,500, and I've been taxing $4,000 a year for the election, and it goes into a reserve so that we don't get hit with the entire election costs, because we know we have an election every 4 years, previously 3 years. So I'm drawing that money in,
This is the year.
and that was
Hey,
it.
wait, you're saying there's an election this year?
I think there is.
Oh.
I've heard rumors. And then there's just the transfer, this is reserves. The money we get from, the net money from land sales will go to a reserve. And then as well, we'll be drawing $22,000 from reserves for the stairs to Kelvin Grove, because we feel that's a legitimate use of the money we will get from the sale from Brunswick Beach, as long as it's used for something that improves access to the beach, while the stairs will obviously improve access to the beach. So essentially we don't have to tax for that $22,000. And then there was just the water surplus.
That's
as
just
you
for
know.
starters, though, pending, Ron, this is a question to you, really. That's pending the test that Peter is developing
Yep.
for legitimate uses of the restricted
But
funds.
this particular one would clearly be.
This is a
taxed.
no-brainer, yeah, it's
a
a
no-brainer.
no-brainer.
Some of
That's
them
why I
might be a
put it
little
in.
dodgy, but I don't think this
If it
one
was a
is.
grey area, I wouldn't have shown it coming from
Yeah.
reserves, but we're quite comfortable this one.
So I'll just remind us that it is on our call whether the use of the restricted funds is legitimate or not. And if we get it wrong, we have to pay it back personally. So we better get it right. And that's why the test is so important, that Peter is promulgating, so that when when we get proposed to say, we have to build a boat ramp to the beach, and we look at it against these test criteria and we say, sorry, that doesn't qualify for use of the restricted funds, or does, as the case may be. But this one is, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Okay. So there'll be some few things we talk about in closed, but this is essentially the 5-year plan. So I did detailed notes on all the different departments, just as a reminder of what we had taxed for. So is there any questions?
Council?
Unless you want to go through it page by page?
No, because just remind us how you came up with the 2019 plus numbers. Some are plugs and some are known, and it's a combination, right?
Yeah, I don't think any are really plugs. I assumed a 3% property tax increase each year, a water user rate increase of 2%, a sewer user increase of 2%. The labor was just based on what we're anticipating the agreement fee, so 1.75 to 2%. Non-labor, I just went between 1.5 and 2.5. The 2.5 was something like insurance, because we're seeing that insurance is going up each year a bit more than inflation. And then I just run the numbers.
Yeah.
And the labor is based on a detailed labor model. That's actually not just a flat percentage. We take the staff that we have, we slot in the union agreements, what we know in people's contracts, and that's how that number comes from. And that's, of course, our biggest expense is the labor.
Okay, in terms of Schedule A, that's on page 43. I had just 2 questions, and the first was on the water fund. Why the significant drop between 2018 and 19? Because these are operating costs.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I'll
Okay.
get back to you on that. Sorry,
I just want to raise the question.
I meant to bring my detail for the 5 years. It just was too hard to read.
Yeah, no, I mean
think
the
what was
costs
unusual
the costs are 140,000 a year less in perpetuity, which is good if true.
Remind myself what was.
But let's find that out.
That little footnote that you always add, Pamela.
Yeah, I didn't go back and look on the water budget. Does it say? Why is it so less? Do we pay off some debt?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got it. I knew what it was. Sorry. It's emergency repairs. I budgeted the emergency repairs in 2018, $147,000 for the Harvey slide. So that's in and out, but it's showing in the expenses. So it's in the revenue, but you're just looking at the expenses there. So it's in the revenue and the expense. So that's why.
Okay, I'm actually going to
It's,
propose when we consider the Schedule B for in the adoption piece. Damn it, I left it on my printer. I'm going to have to remember what it says. I'll explain it when we get there. And the only other question I had on the 5-year plan was the capital expenditures. We showed 2.7. I presume that's the clean water wastewater thing. But I also hear numbers for clean water wastewater, as we heard them again in the IC, of 3.5.
That's what we're discussing in closed, and that's why I'm saying that is why we will need a budget amendment. I can't budget numbers that are uncertain, so I'm going with what we knew at the time, and then we will do a budget amendment to address changes in the capital and how we will fund it as well.
Okay, because some of that is okay. If we can discuss it in
Yeah.
closed. Okay, fine. As long as that we get the right number in the end, I don't mind when it happens.
Back on this one, Pam, so the yin and the yang of this, so the water fund is down 140,000, but where's the proceeds on the revenue side, or is it somewhere else?
Yeah, the proceeds would be in the grant line.
It's in the grant, buried in there? Okay, thanks.
So it's in and out. And then in terms of the capital, again, I've just taken what we did last year. We took the detailed projects in the IMP and we focused them out 5 years. And I'm showing a combination of grants and loans funding that. But that could be subject to change too, based on further discussions we have.
And since I caught this, and what is the other in the consolidated? The Hocus Pocus 148 to 107 to 110?
One sec.
Hocus Pocus being an accounting term. Oh, here it is.
Yeah. No, just
Just-
revenue. So other revenues, external borrowing. Although I show that as a separate line.
Other expenditures.
Other
Other expenditures. Oh, yeah, sorry, I
Oh,
think you took another
so revenue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
revenue. Is that the
A
grant?
big one, tax penalties and interest.
So
This year it was,
potpourri stuff.
this year it was the insurance proceeds. That's where the MFA
Okay.
actuarial interest goes, and that's actually climbing up to about $40,000 a year.
Okay, this represents a massive amount of work, and it actually is a lead-in to stuff that we're going to be doing in the future, based on the strategic plan, based on best practice, based on Pam's knowledge of discussion. So it's a fantastic piece of work. I will remind us that previous 5-year plans in the past were real spreadsheet-generated codes. They were meaningless. So this is really starting to turn into a planning tool, albeit a little fuzzy in later years, but it at least gives us a sense, hey, in 2019, we better be aware that we're going to have this, that, and the other thing. And it's not too soon to be thinking about 2019. It's only 8 months away.
And the added piece that we'll have, would the asset management plan that we're doing this year. That's kind of the final missing piece, is we've got the portion of the IMP projects, but then we'll have the asset management plan, which will look at other assets and will tell us again how much we should be putting aside in reserves to cover future expenses.
I'm particularly interested in hearing what comes up for fire, because we've got 2 fire appliances. Done anything about them? Okay, good. So, sorry, Fred.
Just one question. I'm looking at the parcel taxes. Is that just a nominal amount? Like it's the same throughout the whole 5 years?
It is. It's our remaining parcel tax, and it is a true parcel tax. It has an expiry date, and it's for Brunswick Beach. The Brunswick Beach residents pay that. And it ends, I did check, 2024 is the last year, and then it's gone. And then all the other parcel taxes we had, we repealed over the last few years.
That's right. Thanks. Forgot.
Yeah, the reason it shows as a separate line, it is a nominal amount, but it's actually required by the community charter. So this kind of format, I'm showing the things that are required by the community charter. You're required to show your interest separately and your principal on debt, any parcel taxes, and this revenue. That's the degree of detail I'm required by the community charter to show where our revenue comes from.
Thank you. Thank you. A couple of minor things. One, I spoke to Pamela, so one of the things that I'll mention will be in camera, and she concurs. The other one, I see on page 33, it shows acquisition of a full-time public works employee. So while the public works manager is thinking, is this person in hand, or all the rest of that?
I would defer that to closed.
For it closed, if you could address that and click on with the note closed.
Yeah, land, legal, and labor, that we typically
Okay,
broach
well,
those
just
topics in
whether
closed.
we're out there or not, and this just, if I could ask that, because it's an official document, on page 30 of 118, that Pam's footnote, which is, it shows the hours of the bylaw officer's work. If it were the last part of the sentence, if it could be 14 hours each of Saturday, Sunday, and stats.
Sure.
Or we would be very shy of
Indeed.
folks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? We get a slight kick at the can again when we adopt the bylaw, and I'll have a few issues in there. I may have forgotten it on the printer at home, but my wife just sent me a photo of the paper on the printer at home. Now I've got my notes. Motion to receive and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Thanks, Pam. Well done. What are you going to do the rest of the year?
Recover.
Yeah.
Year end, now I have to do finish the financial statement.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to Nye's report on the beech tree removal and beach shower. I'm sure we've read this thing with great interest. So we'll cut to the chase.
2 trees removed.
Both necessary.
Both had defects that were corroborated upon removal. Essentially what's left to decide is the shower and the stumps. So the stumps are,
Very large and obtrusive.
perfect, thank you. To grind them, we're looking at, and I have to apologize, the numbers that we used in the report were estimates. The final numbers have come in now. Stump grinding is 1,800 to grind both stumps to a level of 20 centimeters below the earth, hopefully, depending on the machine and how it works. Removal of the stump, so with an excavator pulling out the stumps and the roots, is 3,600.
Both.
For both. The stumps are in the way, and the roots are in the way of the boat storage rack, and they are in the way of the water line for the shower, meaning that we'd have to trench through the roots to get that shower line in. So staff prefer removal. The other bonus is that in the future, if there is a structure to be built there, the roots would have to come out anyways. So you would spend, if you decided to go for the grinding, you would do the grinding this year, but in the future, if you built a structure, you'd have to remove those stumps.
Okay, let's do this one at a time. So, Ron, this is your bailiwick.
Fine, so let's call it for the $4,000 that you've got here, that we dig them out, they're all gone, bye-bye, so long, farewell, and we fill in the hole with
Grade it, soil, seed, grass.
done.
Yeah.
Done in a week.
We could do sod for a nominal price, get a pallet of sod in, so it's done.
I think that for all the reasons you, 1, 2, 3, 4 that you did, we could live with it, not spend the $4,000, but I think it's, we're moving our project along here for the renovation. I suppose we, as an alternative, if you want to leave in there, we could put plants there or ring fence it. It'll look not great, but there you go. So for $4,000, I'm in.
Okay, thanks. Want to make a motion?
Done.
Second? Any further discussion? No, he's feeling bad that I say he doesn't second things, so now he is seconding things.
His hand would flick, or maybe he was cold, he was trembling.
Can I just ask now, I noticed, in fact, it wasn't around the trees, but when we were scarifying the earth for laying the pavers on top of the steps, a bunch of irrigation pipe got destroyed?
Yeah, the
You-
irrigation is very shallow there.
Yeah, but
So-
you're going to take care of that anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
And of course it will now have to be extended to where there used to be trees, because that will be lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only suggestion or request is that you do undertake that sodding, because
Yeah.
summer is here. So
Yeah.
grass seed is never going to take now. And to really think through the irrigation pattern, because it didn't used to reach close to the wall. But the motion right,
Didn't reach, sorry, close to
The
the wall,
the beach well?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was always a brown patch for about 8 feet along the front there.
Okay.
So now's the opportunity, seeing as we're going to be digging stuff up, and have a pallet or 2 pallets of sod.
Yeah.
But that's that you can handle in a maintenance budget, or you're going to need extra budget?
I believe so, I'll have to talk to
I
them
think we
about
can.
that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so the motion and seconded is to approve the wholesale removal, full removal of the roots at a budget of somewhere around 3,800, but let's call it 4,000. I'll call that question if we're ready for it. All in favour? And opposed? That carries. Okay, now about the shower.
Two of the large scaffolds, we're talking probably 15, 16 centimeters in diameter, were taken down whole. So it's basically a long stem with a 90 as the tree grew up. Staff had originally considered mounting copper pipe to the back of that and using that as the stand for a shower. We've also looked at the purchase of a beach shower, and they're not cheap. Having said that, the time and effort that it would take to strip the bark off that branch to sand it down, to stain it, to affix the copper pipe to it. It would be unique, but it'll take time to build.
How many heads would it have?
As many, if it's custom, it's as many as we want.
And it would have an on-off valve.
It would have an on-off
Time
valve.
valve.
Yeah.
So it would have the same function. How would it be mounted?
I would defer that to staff.
But buried in the sand or on a base? Or?
No, it would have to be in a concrete
Yeah.
base, something substantial, because it's a pretty weighty
So
branch.
kids can jump on it and
Yeah.
try and knock
Yeah,
it
because
over.
you'd have to bolt through, I presume.
I'm not sure how they would do it, but yeah.
I think the plus of this one is that in the homemade strategy, we get the bottle fillers as part of the package.
Well, I think, having discussed this with staff, the custom, the purchased unit would be the showers and the foot wash, and that we would separate the water fountain and the bottled water, the spigot for the boat wash and the bottled water filling station as a separate small standpipe or something close by.
Yeah, so that does actually raise a question, Ron. I do remember hearing something about boat wash hose or something, but I don't know that we want people spraying a hose up on that hill, which is going to get pretty worn anyway because it's going to be grass, right? Or is the boat rack going to be paved or concreted?
No, the boat rack is not going to be concrete.
So it's gonna be in
It'll
the
have
dirt.
Concrete posts, but yeah.
Concrete posts.
Well, concrete around the post to hold the post there,
Yeah, yeah,
but
but-
it'll be dirt underneath.
It'll be dirt.
I would have thought on this one, this isn't, my boat's a little bigger than would go here. So I'm thinking a shortish hose, not intended to go to where the rack is. So if you're taking your paddleboard up and you add sand and other crud, maybe you wanted to do a quick
On the
wash
beach.
On the beach.
Is that kosher with DFO? It's chlorinated water.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we could rig something. I'd
Indeed.
have to check.
Where is the proposed location for the shower, whether it's this one or the log one?
I believe the mayor had talked about it being close to the fence, so that's pretty much.
But
what
above
we'll
the
do.
high water mark.
I think our intent was to put it on the grass, on the wall.
Grass won't last very long. Turn
not-
into a mud bath.
Not on the beach. Well, we'll have to build a
Catchment.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, obviously that water is going to drain into the ocean,
yeah.
but filtered through sand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we'll leave that to your tender mercies. So,
Yeah, so we can do both with the pre-purchased system.
now, do these not come with a bottle tap?
No, I've looked.
I don't think I've ever seen one with
This idea of filling your bottle next to people showering doesn't
I mean,
resonate
I've
with
been
me.
around the road, I've seen one with a bottle doing it.
It's almost as good as the dog with the poop bag.
Another option is for us to put some sort of tap or
Somewhere
bottle
else.
fill station at the bathrooms.
Yeah, like a water fountain.
Yeah,
Oh,
Not
yeah, that's an easy fix.
yeah,
Did we have a budget for the shower?
we did.
What was it?
I think it was small, 1,500 in parts,
Yeah.
so we wouldn't need to buy the parts if we
did the
bought
log.
this purchased. Yeah.
It's all part of the 30,000 that we budgeted
Mhm.
for this year.
Okay, well, Ron, it's your baby, so I'll let you make the motion. I'm not suggesting that you'll get 100% compliance on it.
Well, we're baby steps in this, and it's kind of like the trees being removed. It's half right, half wrong kind of thing. I think I prefer the homemade version as a trial. See if it gets desecrated versus our little stainless steel one that people do nasty things to.
Okay, well, before I ask for a second on that one, I prefer the
Nice one.
institutional one,
Mhm.
and I prefer the round one over the square one. Just because I think it'll end up working better functionally. Quite besides sort of the practicality of putting in it. I just don't, because I've seen those branches. They are massive. I don't know where you come up with 8 inches. They're more like 14, 16 inches. They're huge.
Mhm.
And how you will stop that thing from falling over without pouring a massive pad of concrete somewhere, which I suppose we're going to need to do anyway to have some sort of pan. It's just, I
It will
never,
take a long time to build the custom shower.
and then you're going to have something with the Home Depot special, right? Okay, so was that a motion that you were making, Ron, or was that
I think I was
discussion?
speaking out loud more.
Yeah.
You know, I value Works Department's time here, and, you know, for the, let's call it 1,500, $2,000 versus the, let's call it 4 for the sake of argument, for the, we put it in place and we're done. I think I'd move it to a new one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very supportive of the commercial one because it looks like it's supposed to look like that. It would induce a level of slightly higher care from beachgoers.
I'm also kind of doing a little marketing here. I mean, we've kind of banged a big drum on the beach park renovations, and even if it's a baby step, it looks like we're moving in the right direction.
Now, do we have to get the one from Australia?
I will add that that's the easiest one to find in time to get the council report in.
Okay, so there's
So
others.
we will be sourcing, hopefully locally, and hopefully at a lesser cost.
I quite like this one. 316 stainless.
I'd go with the $4,000 number, is that fine?
Yeah, absolutely.
4.
Is that a motion?
Sorry.
Okay, thanks. Second? There's a second. Discussion? You ready for the question? I am. All in favour? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Well done as well. Yeah, we already decided, but I'll just also point out there was quite a bit in this cut sheet here on vandal proofing and so on, which is a consideration, unfortunately. So that would meet that. Okay, so let's move on to
Confined space.
confined space thing, page 53. So we've read the report. So the recommendation now is that we spend quite a lot of money, or is that just a placeholder until?
No, the nailing down the exact figure is a little difficult because a qualified person can lump together confined spaces. So if they're roughly the same size, same purpose, same hazardous substance in them, they can be lumped together. So I'm hoping treatment plants can be lumped together. Water tanks can be lumped together. I'm hoping some of the PRVs can be lumped together. But it's entirely up to the registered professional.
But what are we going to learn from this person that we don't actually know? In other words, I'll ask the question bluntly. Are we paying $40,000 for a report to appease WorkSafe BC?
We're paying for its accreditation.
Yep.
We're paying $15,000.
Well, okay, 40,000 is not. Yeah, right. It came. Yeah.
Yeah.
When all said and done, we're paying $15,000 to get something to appease WorkSafe, because we know all this. In other words, here's my real question: is can we do this in house?
No,
We don't have an RP.
it has to be a registered
QP or
professional. Yeah. The only portion of this we could do in-house is the report, which is nominally about $2,000. The rest is the actual assessment of each confined space. The other issue is the requirement for alternate measures. Because our PRVs don't have an external bypass, staff are put into a compromising situation. So we need to develop alternative measures, and the registered professional is the only one that can come up with those.
And the number is 15,000. How do we handle that budget-wise, Pam?
I think we wait to see, know exactly what the cost is, and then we just see if we have room in the budget. We might have to not do something else to accommodate it, because I think it is quite critical to the safety of our staff.
Oh, well, there's no question.
Yeah.
We're not allowed in the confined spaces right now.
Exactly. So no.
So how long
PRV
will this happen?
maintenance.
Take to happen?
Depends on the availability of the contractors.
I would not suggest that we kill something else. I think we're going to have to resolve a draw in reserves.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We will say, so much we kill something, we see how the year goes. If we are favorable in some things, it can offset it. But I think we do have to say in the resolution that we will be drawing, I would say surplus. It's coming from surplus.
Surplus,
We have restricted reserves and then
Yeah,
unappropriated
yeah.
surplus. to identify where it's coming from.
We don't really have a choice. It's just one of those things.
Just a quick question: can we contract out maintenance in the meantime?
Anybody who is coming will have to see confined space procedures, so we'll have to do them anyways. So we would likely face a grievance if we contracted out.
That's what I was thinking.
But even irrespective of that, a contractor coming in would have to see the entry procedures and would have to follow them.
Some of these contracts have their own in-house procedures, right? So they would
These
assume
are-
liability for any work that they do.
These are specific to our confined spaces. They have to be specific according to the WCB regulations, or WorkSafe regulations.
And are they posted or are they just in a manual on a shelf?
They're in a manual on the shelf.
Which we're doing all the right stuff anyway. We just don't have it documented.
We don't have it documented, yeah. And this will include improved sheets. Right now we're using dated sheets.
Material safety data sheets.
I know confined space entry logs, and so sheets that staff fill out at each confined space entry.
Well, you gave us a heads up on this one
A while
a
ago.
year and a half ago. Yeah. Okay, well, it's come to fruition. So, what is the wording of the motion you would like to hear, Pam and or Nye and or Peter?
Let's say
Page 2.
Oh, is it on page 2?
option 1.
Direct staff to engage with the lowest bidder to complete the necessary works in compliance with WorkSafe BC's order to a maximum of $15,000 drawn from
With the
So-
funds, yeah,
with
to
the
come
funds
from
drawn
lease
from surplus.
Please.
So,
How about that staff be directed?
okay,
That staff be directed to engage with the lowest bidder to complete the necessary works in compliance with WSBC's order to a maximum of $15,000 with the money to be drawn from surplus.
well, the option given there is the remaining to be done internally by the public works manager, but I think it's fair
Probably
to,
about $2,000 worth.
yeah, the money is not, and your time is worth more than that, quite frankly. Yeah, okay. So I'll take,
Why are we putting a dollar cap on this?
Because we've had quotes and that's how much we think it will
Okay.
cost.
because we don't want
We're hoping
the
it'll
gold
be less
line
than that,
paperwork.
but that's the maximum,
Yeah.
so we want to make sure it's in the resolution.
Yeah, it's just because we need authorization to spend that money, but that will be the maximum.
And we need authorization because it's not in the budget.
All of those. Okay, so I'll consider that the motion. Can I have that motion seconded? Thanks. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And on we go to the reports. Here's what I propose. I know I've already pushed this off once, but nothing's going to happen while Peter is away, so there's no need to have this discussed now. So what I would propose is that we just table this item. How do we do that? Do I need a motion to table it, or do I say it as the sponsor?
You would move that it be referred to a specific time.
Okay,
So if you want to pick,
I'll pick the second meeting after you return.
so that'd be June 8th, I think, or
Okay.
somewhere around the first June meeting.
Okay, so I move that we table this, defer this to the first June meeting. Can I have a second? That's a second. Any discussion? Unless you really want to talk about 8 reports.
On this one, if I, like,
Yeah.
only 20 seconds. Individually, there's a lot of work per topic. And Peter, if you've had a look at this, I mean, is this something that would take you more than, I guess where I'm going is, what is your sense of time for just doing the half-page run each of these, or however you farm it out to the team? Is this,
Well, some of these aren't half-pagers, some of them are full reports, some of them are probably fairly involved discussions at council level. Some are Yeah, I mean, some are strategic planning things, in my opinion. So there's a lot of variety and a lot of different things. And then there's the odd one that's kind of like, yeah, it's in progress kind of thing. So.
Well, maybe I won't call the question on the motion to defer just yet. I mean, you see what I'm asking for here. Does anybody disagree that we need to know this information?
No, and that's my problem. Before Peter responds, I think it's from a governance perspective, bang on the money. Because each of these are, you know, of some importance. But you know, this is our manpower to do it. It's not going to be able to make it happen quickly. The calendar moves along here, and you know, the CAO's away. We're away in August, and
Well, if you'd care to make a friendly motion to amend the motion, that is to actually resolve this, and with best efforts to produce the reports as they come.
I think in its entirety, it's just too much. And but each one of these is something that needs to be done, or it's going to be on. It should be put forward as data for the next council to put it in somewhere in their priority list.
Well, some, like the first one, for example, that's a PR issue. But now that's potentially deferred for a while, so it's less pressing than it was when I wrote it 3 days ago. So,
Well, I'm fine doing the best efforts, but you know, to me, this is one of these little sheets when I pull out my binder and then this goes in the recycle, this one doesn't. This is one of the ones it's not.
you want to know, yeah, yeah.
So I may surface this again, so you know, if Peter can work this in, I do it at the best efforts, I'm fine with that.
How would these things not come up for discussion as we tackle them? Well, why do they need special reports?
Well, because we're not really tackling that. The report is the issue.
Okay.
It's being worked on, but we don't know about it. And it's stuff we should know about, like the fire department, for example. $400,000 item. I know it says somewhere in this package that we should get quarterly fire department reports. Well, we haven't had a report since January.
Is that correct?
You had one with the fourth quarter.
Yeah, financial. No, I mean operational. You know,
The fire chief was here last week.
yeah, but he didn't answer any of these questions.
And your own reports on the fire department are very detailed and insightful, and I certainly appreciate them. So I wouldn't say that there has been no information.
You do?
Sure, I mean, it's good information, and it's well laid out, and it's graphed, and it's easy to follow. So I think that people appreciate that, and you know, it's
Yeah, well, I mean, you see the questions I want to know about here is what the housing status and the pressures.
these are big ticket strategic planning things. That some of these things were actually purposely deferred at our strategic planning session, like the firefighter housing issue. We talked
Yep.
about that and then deferred it.
Okay, well, I mean, if that's the answer, we can't answer the question. That's fine. But
I mean, if you want me to speed through this and give 15-second answers.
okay,
as to-
let's do that. Start with one.
I can do that. Well, number one, I think, as you noted, is temporarily moot, and I think requires a bit of bit of thought in terms of who knows if we're even going there. So,
Yeah. Okay.
so I'm just going to pass by that one.
Yeah.
Strategic parking plan, bylaw officer terms of reference. So, council doesn't approve terms of reference for employees. Bylaw officers have job descriptions. Those job descriptions entail what they do, the full range of all the duties that they have. There's a particular emphasis in the job description for our bylaw enforcement officers to concentrate on parking, and that's what they do spend most of their time on. I direct them in terms of where they're to spend their priorities and things that I want them to specifically address. And if council has particular wishes in terms of priorities for enforcement, then You just have to let me know, and I will take that into account in directing staff. So that's the way that should work.
Okay, I think that sort of crystallizes my ask there, and that is that I want council to provide input into what we expect our enforcement activity to be. I do not want the bylaw officer to be looking at dog tags, and I do want him to be ticketing non-permitted vehicles parked 36 deep down Lions Bay Avenue. Now, we've discussed that one, so that one we don't need to do, but there's potentially others. Our big challenges for bylaw enforcement in Lions Bay in the summer is parking and water waste. The rest, potentially noise late night in some places, but he's never really, the bylaw function is not here when noise becomes an issue, which is around 1, 2. There's also, what I was really looking for here was an understanding of when do the police get called. When does the bylaw officer know when to call the police? So when he's feeling threatened? Absolutely. Okay.
That's part of the training that I think I'll speak to it now, I guess. We've recently interviewed and have settled on 2 bylaw officers, extended offers, which were accepted, and they'll be coming for their training session May 11th. So both have good backgrounds in terms of dealing with the public and dealing with situations where they will know when to call for help. So.
Okay, so if one of them falls ill and can't do Sunday afternoon, what happens?
For Sundays and stat holidays, we have another option that still has to be clarified, but one of the previous bylaw officers is available for that.
On standby type.
Yeah.
Okay, these are things that I didn't know before.
Yeah, well, I didn't know them until yesterday.
Okay, well, so
Today,
timely.
actually.
Today
So
at
today.
4 o'clock.
Okay, well, so it's hot off the press type report.
It is, yeah.
Because I think, I certainly want to avoid a repeat of last year where I saw egregious flouting of the rules unaddressed. Plus, many phone calls from many people who felt that things could be done better, and specifically in the summer, but also throughout the year. So I'm absolutely adamant that we must really tighten up on our enforcement quotient so that we don't have a repeat of last year, and that we can actually fulfill the strategic goals that is council's purview in terms of providing for visitors while accommodating residents, all the stuff that we know.
Should we move on?
Yeah.
CM parking lot layout. We're getting in touch with someone to see what that cost looks like and if that can get done, so that we have that in hand when you meet with CM May 9th, hopefully. Nye's pulling together as much information as possible for that time.
What are you doing on reviewing parking prices?
Yeah, that's actually something we were just discussing today as well. Certainly open to having council's thoughts on parking prices. It's something that we have to determine quickly. I was speaking with Precise ParkLink today, so they need parking prices if they're going to change or not in order to finalize the meter
Signage.
the meter order,
And the
to
sign,
place the order.
And remind us what they were last year?
Last year, Sunset, $1 an hour, maximum $8, maximum $3 days. Kelvin Grove, $1 an hour, maximum $8, closed at night. CN, $2 an hour, maximum 16, maximum 3 days.
Okay, well, in terms of that, the feedback I've had was that Kelvin was too low. But I don't know. We're not trying to make money out of this, we're trying to control. So, yeah. I don't know how you make that determination. That's your problem.
Feels incredibly cheap to me when I look at what I have to pay in the city to park. So people would be used to paying a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
since they are by definition visitors. Yeah.
I use White Rock as my benchmark.
Feedback.
$1 these days.
Some staff got when we were going changing the meters, because it had been free before, there was a reaction. We got yelled at through a few car windows sometimes that we were charging at all, but I think it wasn't so much the price, it was just the fact that we were charging. But they've had that year to adjust now, because last year it went from nothing to having to pay.
There is a resentment. That's why the press came calling. Yeah, I mean, I think 3 TV interviews and at least 3 articles on the fact that Lions Bay was now charging for parking. But to do them justice, once they understood the rationale, that it wasn't a money grab, that we didn't expect to make much beyond the 14,000 we did make, it was to control things. Precious resource. So, yeah, quite frankly, I don't have much of an opinion on the price. It has been said that we could charge double at Kelvin, same as CN. But to the extent that's worth it. But we're not making a decision now.
Yeah, we could.
Okay.
We kind of need to.
Okay, well,
Sure.
it's a staff decision, but if you can see some nods around the table. So everybody good with?
So generally speaking, if the direction is that an increase in rates would feed into trying to get more turnover in the lots, then which is perhaps an objective that we'd like to see, then that's what staff will proceed with.
On the 2 beach lots?
Not for Sunset.
No, I think if you're lucky enough, we are going to, and we have already made provision for signage that will direct people to free parking at the school lot outside school hours, which during the summer, of course, is the whole summer. Now, the current signage at the school lot says no overnight parking, and that's the school's decision, and we're going to not try and change that. So that is only day parking, and I think the sign says that right now. Free day parking at 400 Centre Bayview Road.
I don't recall.
Yeah, but it was thought through. So, yeah, no, if you want to park there for 3 days at the stipulated price, it's not a money-making thing, it's just to control things. And I think you made the point last year, Ron, that if somebody's still there after 3 days, they've got bigger problems than the parking expiring.
We have to find them.
Yeah, well, somebody has to find them, yeah. As part of the community signage makeover, there's going to be quite a bit of fairly cooperative type signage saying, you're going up to, it's not a walk in the park. I don't know if you've seen the sign at on the path to the chief, the Star Wars chief. The sign says this is not a walk in the park, and then proceeds to say, what's going to happen to you if you don't know what you're doing. That was put by BC Parks. And we're not the backcountry authority, so we don't take responsibility. So I think that's probably good enough for you, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Fire department, I think, is a much bigger
Fine.
item that's going to take some time, and is still being worked on, putting out an RFP for a trainer.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
The report on the Crystal Falls lots. I had hoped to have something prepared and in front of council by now, but I will endeavor to have that to you as soon as I get back. And zoning bylaw changes, the TUPs, procedures are being written, getting close, and bylaw officers can also be utilized for some secondary suite investigations in terms of follow-up on advertised suites, make sure that they're legal.
Okay, I'll just remind us all that we've seen quite a lot coming through from the public on abuse of the secondary suite, of the short-term rental situation. I heard from somebody yesterday, Jim from the IC, said that the house that's habitually used as a short-term rental, quite close to his house, this past weekend, a bus came and unloaded 18 party animals for a 3-night weekend. 3-day weekend, 2-night weekend. And I'm hearing, even though we passed the zoning bylaw 4 months ago, we still don't have procedures against it. It's just going to get worse. So I mean, it seems to me the forms need to be done yesterday, and the rules are encapsulated in the zoning bylaw, so it's pretty quick. we've had a very legitimate complaint of close to abuse and harassment down at Brunswick, which council's seen. I think, I don't know if it's in correspondence, maybe it is. So yeah, we need to proceed on that one. And what I'm interested in from a strategic standpoint is it working? But we're not at that point yet. Both for short-term rentals and for secondary suite abuse. Now, we made secondary suite reporting mandatory this year. Did it work? I'd like to know. I'm not asking for an answer now.
Yeah, we're still compiling the information.
Okay, well, I just...
Actually, on this one, I was cognizant of the complaint in Brunswick, and it's the issue of not following through to the end on this one. I think, Peter, I really would appreciate maybe a date when you might be able to make a deliverable on this one.
Yeah, I'm back on the 22nd meeting. So.
A month after?
Yeah, sure.
Month after?
Does it have to be you doing it? I know you can do everything, but...
Well, I've actually asked Steve to take a look at pulling together some procedures as well, so hopefully we may have it soon, even while I'm away perhaps.
Good, and Sean, could you catch that in the minutes, please, so that we can move it to unfinished when we review next time? Thank you very much, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, that really means that we're not going to have procedures in place
Sorry,
until
I
June.
picked and chosen on this one, but it's...
Yeah. Okay. Let's leave it at that. Number 7 is simply so that we can point the public at it. As I am going to, for example, point the public at your tree report, saying, here's chapter and verse, Latin names, all that good stuff, in the public agenda. This is the same.
The speed logger had a bit of a meltdown, so we need to get it checked out before we can put it at the second location on Bayview. We're still waiting for that data, so it's in progress.
It'd be useful just to report it. I mean, it's a strategic / political / tactical role of councils. And 8 we've talked about. So you've pretty much taken this. So I don't need to call the question. I think we've had the reports and the ones that are bigger deals, specifically the fire one. That's a work in progress. So I'm prepared to. How do we kill this?
We've received it.
Received it. Motion. So how do we kill the previous motion? Besides just expunging it manually from the minutes.
Well, you could vote on it and vote it down. It's probably the simplest thing to do.
Okay. So I'll call the question, but remember we're voting against it. All in favour? Opposed? Unanimously opposed. I don't know if I like that approach.
Your hand was up in your own recommendation.
Yeah, exactly. And then a motion to receive the report and a second. Any discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay, thank you. So I am cognizant of the time, Ron. You're next.
No, you've got 2 things.
Is that what? Do these go here?
I have them as B, 2, and 3.
Okay, yes. Oh, sorry. This one is actually numbered. Okay, so 2 is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to even go through it. I presume that we've run it. There's a motion, thank you. And a second. There's a second. Any discussion on this one? Ron?
Nope.
No? I'll call the question. Ready? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay, so will staff please send Glenn a letter? No, in fact, I'll do it. And I will also send DFO the resolution so they know that he's authorised. Okay? So that would be an action arising. Thank you. And then the other one was somewhat as a suggestion from our MLA, but it was to register Lions Bay's opinion on 3 taxes raised by the provincial government. Now, I'm presupposing that this is a council's opinion, and I'm fairly confident that I'm reflecting the values of the community, but do we want to do this?
I printed out your thing when I first came, and I did my green marks on this one. Of course, we are talking about vacant houses only.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't too clear in the first part of the background.
I wrote this in a hurry.
Okay, fair enough. The thing I'm kind of concerned about is that the aspect of vacant houses doesn't contribute to the sense or feel of the community, period. But I'm not sure that this tax is going to resolve that.
Thank you.
Precisely.
I
Couldn't
find-
agree. I'm all for having occupied houses too, but this tax is not going to do it.
No. Yeah, I think it is a cash grab again. Before they institute taxes like this, I would like to see some track record of this means actually working somewhere. I just feel like they're grasping at straws, trying to find a solution that they really haven't mastered. And I would hate to endorse another tax on people unless we're confident of the outcome.
Well, so that's, I agree. That's why I said let's write to the minister and say so. But whether I got that right is a whole nother question. So what I would perhaps say, the reason I put this together in such a hurry is that I've heard from quite a few residents, and I had another one today that sort of catalyzed me putting this pen on paper, asking, are we in the speculation tax thing or not? So in the end, I called Jordan Sturdy, and he says he's pretty sure we are. Peter just actually heard back from the Ministry of Finance today as well, who said that we are not. But the person he spoke to didn't actually quite seem to understand where the boundaries of Metro Vancouver Regional District are.
So I phoned back, spoke to somebody else, explained in a bit more detail the lay of the land here and some of the anomalies with electoral area A, and because they're specifically exempted, as well as Bowen. And he said, okay, I'll look into this. I'll get right back to you. I never heard back.
Which is what's been happening for the last 6 weeks.
Basically.
Yeah. So we don't actually know, but Sturdy, I don't think he went and asked the minister, but Sturdy seems to think we are.
I thought we were just on the same rationale.
By
that he did.
definition, yeah.
We're a member of Metro, blah. we're
Well, so
good.
is Bowen.
Well, yeah,
But as
they-
Jordan Sturdy said, apparently because they're an island, that makes a
Oh,
difference.
yeah, well, I don't think Bowen had any pre-lobby to the surprise.
No,
so
no.
It just, somebody decided that all these little islands that are in the Gulf are exempted, and so is Bowen.
But here's what I suggest. I think we don't want to be sending an off-the-cuff letter to the Minister of Finance because we get one chance to get it right. So what I'd suggest we do is we table this one as well, and perhaps I'll bring it back to the next council meeting once I've had a chance to think about it. But what I would like is people's input to the specific wording, to the philosophies expressed. Do we want to talk about the three things? You know, when I actually started looking up the details, man, they're really got their hands in our pockets here.
This is, in my personal view, a heinous string of legislation that has been jammed down people's throats. And they did it because they could do it. They didn't have any consultation. They didn't have any a clear end goal in mind. And it's not dissimilar to Gregor Robertson very happily exclaiming that they've made $30 million on the empty homes thing, and that's going to help everybody.
How that conflicts with this, I don't know. And I'll also just point out to you that the speculation tax impacts our short-term rental thing. So if you rent short-term, you're falling afoul of this, and you would be considered to have an unoccupied home. Because occupied means 30-day rentals. Exactly our definition, right, Peter? So if you're short-term renting your house, you have to pay the speculation tax.
So I think the idea is to ensure that there's enough housing for people who need long-term housing because they can't afford to buy a house anymore. So they
But
need
we're
a- they
taking
need a
care of that.
rental
Thank you,
house.
Minister. We've got that covered. Don't worry.
you?
Let us run our
How are we taking care of that?
tops for short-term rentals and secondary suites and all that stuff. We are highly skewed towards long-term rentals in our existing legislation.
What has West Vancouver done on this?
Well, you should hear Mike Smith
You're
almost.
using them as the poster child?
Mike Smith is almost blowing a gasket every time it comes up because it's not only them. The core, the heat map. There is a heat map floating around. Is the west end of Vancouver. That's because they're all over 3 million.
Yeah, well, I certainly, I mean, the ones on the super school tax, I mean, that's just horrible.
When you say school, you've got to go like this.
Sorry, I don't.
Because you know it's not a school tax, right?
It's not really a tax either.
It's a penalty.
Okay, so here's my recommendation. In terms of the spirit, I am dead set against these 3 taxes, period. And that's for council to do the nods or whatever you want to do to proceed with this. But, you know, I don't know that you have to invent the wheel when we've got the West Vancouvers of the world. And if we can piggyback off their folks, why not? So, happy with it. It's not gonna go away, because until there's a re-election.
Okay, tell you what, let me run with it. I won't ask for a resolution at this stage, and I'll bring it back to next meeting.
So, in terms of nods, I am a yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I won't ask for it, so this is probably just a heads up. Okay,
Motion to receive, right?
motion to receive. Thanks, and a second. All in favour? Opposed? Okay, yes, thanks for that. And now we will go to your report, Ron.
Thank you. On page 59, and before I won't spend a second on this, thank you to the staff for attendance and for stuff. There's 2 pieces in here. One which I like the big spacing on all those bullet points. The key point here is that I think that we, the greater we, could have done better. I know that staff went and invited all these variety of groups that I mentioned here, but at the end of the day, my ultimate line here is if we're recognizing the volunteers for time, if we think their time is valued and our attendance is poor, what does it tell us? It's telling me either A or B, that they're not interested or we're not doing a good job. So my recommendation, subject to discussion afterwards, is that I'm prepared to put a motion forward that that this report is received, this information report is received and brought back to council the second session of November 2018 for consideration of the recommendations by council, which would be well in advance of the normally scheduled event. And I also take Mayor Burr's resolution, which is 9C.
Far less polite resolution.
Well, but it's the yin and the yang of this. It's either or. I really
Yes.
believe that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is from Mayor Birch, who agree or not. I'd have both of them brought forward in mid-November for the council today to consider what they want to do. At this moment, there's nothing I would recommend to you, other than save the holiday.
Fair enough.
So I think it's, the council needs, I mean, if I thought about this a year ago, and I'd done this, his attendance was about the same, I kind of vaguely remember. I suppose then I would have had a chance to put it into execution during my term, but I didn't. Shame on me. So I would propose that we.
It certainly needs some more formality, and I mean the 3 staff members who are attended were sitting right here, so much appreciated, very much valued. But my understanding was this was an event promulgated by staff, set up by staff to thank volunteers, and we had 3 staff members because
But it's
people.
not just staff
It's just staff,
thinking,
it
it's
It's actually,
Council,
it's
right.
considered a council event, actually. Staff do it for you, but it's council. It's funded by council.
So the invitations went out from council, because I don't remember
No,
signing.
but that's
anything.
one of the pieces that need
Yeah.
to be worked on, so.
I certainly invited people that I was discussing, but I don't think any of the committees invited anybody. I'm not a committee chair, so I didn't.
No,
We
I-
sent
you know
emails
what?
out to every committee, including Board of Variance, everyone, inviting them.
Well, I think the only fundamental issue is the time. It needs to be in the evening.
Yeah, we've got feedback, though evening is difficult as well. I mean, I agree, I think if the afternoon doesn't work, we should try the evening, but people are busy in the evening as well.
Okay, well, I'm prepared to table this because we don't need to decide this for another year in theory, but it is a more fundamental issue that, golly gosh.
Okay, so it's recommended to receive the report.
Okay, is that your motion?
That's my motion, and then it comes back November, the second week of November,
Do you have that adequately, Donna? Okay,
Second week of November, bring it back.
second session of November.
can I have that a second on that, Guy?
Second meeting.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Sorry, Peter?
just clarifying, second meeting in November?
Yep.
This November.
Yep.
After the new council's,
Inauguration.
no, they would have been inaugurated in the first meeting in November.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, fine. I'll call that question. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay. On we go to the formal resolution of reappointing Mayor Walton as our representative on the Board of Econ. Just for background, one of the first phone calls I got was, now, we know that you're new and you know what you're doing, and so here's what's happening. Mayor Walton is going to represent you on the Econ Board. And I said, oh, good, that sounds great. It's still that way. 4 years later. But that's how it wants. The Econ wants continuity, so they want one mayor to represent per election. So it's been Richard, and from what I understand, he's done a fine job, according to what he said on the radio on Monday.
As only he could say.
Yeah. So, is there a recommendation here? Peter?
Should be, yes. That the village of Lions Bay nominates Mayor Richard Walton of the District of North Vancouver to represent the village of
Oh, it's in the
Lions Bay
agenda. That's right. I knew I'd seen it somewhere.
on the Econ Board of Directors for the 2018-2019 term, such board to be appointed by Econ shareholders at the June 21st, 2018 annual general meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So that text is the text of the motion. Can I have a motion on that? Thanks. And a second. Any discussion? All in favour? Opposed? Carried. So you will send the formal.
By resolution.
Got it. Just a note, we've missed 9A,
Oh, sorry.
which was actually.
That's because I was following in the package rather than on the agenda. Sorry. I'll read the recommendation that Council appoint the Chief Financial Officer to the role of Acting Chief Administrative Officer and Corporate Officer during any Chief Administrative Officer's vacancies, vacation, or sick time. Haven't we done this already in the past?
We did it, I think, myself and the prior Public Works Manager when there was the long vacancy, but I think it was specific to that
To that. Okay,
vacancy.
fine. Okay, can I have a motion in that regard? Thanks. And a second. Any discussion? Don't you want to be the acting? Do you want to alternate?
I tried to bribe him.
Okay. If that's the. All in favour? Opposed? That carries.
Thank you.
You're not allowed to register any thanks. Okay. I am going to pull my recommendation. I'm not even going to bring it on the table for consideration, and we'll move on to bylaws. First is page.
Sorry, excuse me.
Mhm.
This we were going to defer until after the close, the reading of the two bylaws, I think. Tax rate bylaw, we're going to do 5 year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to go to close and then come back.
Okay, we didn't do that in the adoption of the agenda, but I'm prepared to ask for a motion to move 9A and B until after return from closed. Is that what you need, Pam? Okay. That's a motion and a second. Discussion. Fred, you look.
Do you mean 10A and B?
Yeah, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just opened.
Oh, we just did
She wants to
that.
make changes.
Whatever. Yeah, 10. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, that was your perplexed look.
Yes.
Good. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And so, 10C, the soil deposit, soil removal and land alteration bylaw 510, third reading, page 73. I had quite a few comments on this one. Where do we stand on the clock? It's 9:10. I guess we have to do it, right? Because we have to do it. So let's put it on the table for debate. So can I have a motion for third reading and a second? Discussion. We have the report. I think we all understand what it is. I'll kick off the commentary period, if I may, with the obvious one, and that under 4 definitions, Peter. Under 4.1, I see that you've struck the planting of a tree. That's good. But we're saying that if somebody wants to cut their own tree down greater than 20 centimeters, 4 inches.
So what I did was. No, it's 8 inches.
8 inches. More than an 8-inch tree, they have to get a permit.
Yeah, so I went out and looked at some of the cedars, the big cedars and firs and stuff that are in the planter out front of the hall, like the space between the upper and the lower parking areas, and took a measuring tape and some of them were 30 centimeters, but there was some fairly substantive cedars that were 20 centimeters that had major root structures and were, 30 feet high. You can have a pretty substantive tree at 20 centimeters. That is the definition of a tree under the tree bylaw. I had gone back and looked at this thinking, okay, yeah, maybe this needs to be upped a bit to encompass a more substantive tree, but when I realized that this already encompasses a pretty substantive tree, and maybe that's why it was set as the amount for the tree bylaw by people wiser than me, I was reticent to change it. I thought better to just bring it here and have this discussion, and if council has some different ideas about what that number ought to be or how to approach this issue, then that's great. But I was concerned to simply, pull a number out of my...
So the issue is slope retention.
Yeah.
So maybe we can say something like, if located on a slope of greater than X%.
And we could even use in terms of the slope of X%, we could use the definition
Yeah.
for minor works, which refers to a slope of 30%, basically.
So where it does exceed.
So where it exceeds 30% and is greater than 20 centimeters.
Even so, there's going to be an outcry. I don't need to tell you. You telling me that I have to get a piece of paper to say I can cut down my own tree?
But the piece of paper, the whole idea of the piece of paper would be simply to inspect the location,
Check that it's okay.
have a conversation with the property owner.
But there's a substantial fee.
And we do have staff with the appropriate designations. They're professional. What's the proper designation that Garth and Donna have? Horticulturalists. So, we do have the staff that's capable of assessing something and saying, you know what, this is not a worry, this is not a concern. There you go. Or if it is a worry and a concern, then we can call for, as in the bylaw, the public works manager can call for a report to be provided.
So how much do you pay for that inspection?
Well, staff, I don't think, yes.
There's a $100 fee for that, but that's only for deposit or removal of soil. So, but presumably somebody's going to have to go
Right.
out there.
So maybe the minimum, maybe there needs to be a minimum fee to inspect for that aspect of things.
Yeah.
I would add that we do that inspection as part of the tree removal permit already. So if you're removing trees on municipal land,
Right.
Public Works will inspect.
Yeah.
So it's part of the tree permit fee.
Yeah. What do we charge for tree permit fee now?
$75.
75.
Just remind us, these are
But that's
private trees.
also, it's also a committee and so forth, maybe $50 or something.
Okay, well, so I'm happy to let you think that through for.
Well,
This is third reading.
this is third reading.
Yeah, so we may have to send it back, and I apologize for not having looked at this closer before. The other thing is live tree, dead tree. Do we care?
We should.
So, for example, I took down 2 trees that were about yay big. What's that? 40 centimeter. Let's say 40 centimeter trees in my back because they were dead, and they were going to fall on my house at some point. So I felled them without asking anybody's permission. Okay, they were on the flat. I did consider that they were not on the slope, so I thought, that's not holding up any slope, so that's fine. But does it make a difference if they're live or dead?
I'm actually opposed to anything to do with trees on private property. I think it's somewhat invasive. Having Big Brother drop by is, thought we'd just come and look at your tree that you wanted to cut.
It is sort of almost a DPA type issue, though.
That's where, I think that we have an opportunity to not go down a section of it. 3 dump trucks with the dirt, I'm good all day long. That's a clear definition to me. But all of us have got trees on their lots and, representing the community.
But now, what if the guy above you, on a pretty steep slope, takes out a 20 centimeter tree? Are you going to be happy about that?
10 of them, 5 of them.
Or multiple?
Well, it's his property. And that's the deal here
But the
too.
bank's coming down on your house.
I believe this has occurred to me more than anybody else in the
Yeah.
community, and I can tell you what the resolution is that the individual's not culpable, and that's what you have insurance for. So, you know, my view on this one is that anything to do with the trees, it's public property, different issue.
Well, we could just drop 4.1B altogether.
Well, I think that's where I mean, that's really the one that works for me the best.
What do you say, Peter?
What do you want to drop?
The whole trees.
Page 76
consider-
of 118, so read in the definitions.
4.1B.
It's
Just
removal-
4.1B.
Just removal of the tree. And I mean, really what we've done here, Norm, is kind of open this. Carl's given a practical example, and I've had trees crash in my house.
But that was a tree. That wasn't the land
No,
that used to be held up by the tree.
no, it's a freak windstorm, bad luck. Ask anybody who was walking around Stanley Park the month before, so, okay. So anyhow, key point is that I'm into the home is your castle, untaxed by the provincial government in most instances, and I think we should leave the homeowner to deal with their own trees.
But
So
if
there's no way to qualify 4B to include language around slope stability?
My experience on this, having dealt with my insurance company, they have an insurance company, you have an insurance company.
Okay.
We're happy to, and I even try and say, okay, well, perhaps as we look at this slope and now that's cleared out, perhaps this one, would you, I said, no, it could fall down again tomorrow, you're still insured.
But if the slope comes down and takes away your house and kills you, what good is your insurance? That's really what this is about.
Okay, so we're protecting you against self-infliction here.
No?
No, because your neighbor did it.
Well, then, okay, so I'm not an insurance agent, so I'm gonna go with what I was told at the time. That,
This is not compensation or remediation. This is a safety thing, as is the soils part. You don't want somebody's 3 dump truck loads coming through your front door. You and your own 3
I
dump trucks.
think we need to do a little more research here on what trees really provide slope stability, what that slope is. There's got to be some relatively established guidelines here.
Well, what you're going to get in a guideline is these are the things where you need to do an assessment. It's going to be varied all over the place because it's going to depend on the type of soil. It's going to depend on the slope. It's going to depend on stuff that's underneath, and it's going to depend on the type of tree and all kinds of different things. So somebody's going to have to look at it.
How
It's
does
the long and
Westman
short
handle
of it.
They have a blanket policy, thou shalt not cut trees down unless you get a permit, and that includes getting a West Van arborist to take a look at trees on private property.
And do you know what North Van does?
I know they do require permits. A few times I've had tree cut down, I've had someone come and I don't actually know what it is, they said I haven't required a permit.
There's a
But
diameter in like
there's a
that.
diameter involved. I don't know what it is, but the trees I've taken down, I guess, have been below the diameter.
But you did have to call somebody from the city to come and have a
No,
look.
I didn't actually. I just got an estimate, and it was the person coming to give me the quote said, oh, you won't need a permit. And if I did, then I would have had to go and get a permit.
Yeah, I mean, we know that 1/3 of Lions Bay will say, oh, for heaven's sake, not another interference. 1/3 will say whatever, and 1/3 will say, thank goodness you've finally done this. Okay, let's leave that one for now.
We're protecting from the worst case scenario. That's the goal, right? Is that you want to protect from a clear cut, left to right, front to back, on a steep slope. It's not one tree coming down that's for aesthetic.
well, I mean, we had Okay, well, let's open a Pandora's box. We've had a recent event that was on television where property owner A cut what were allegedly his trees next to property owner B, who thought they were, maybe they weren't, maybe they're public, who knows what. So we're kind of getting into this all over again. And the easy path would be it's on your property.
Yeah, and the objection there was aesthetic, not geotechnical. Perhaps it should have been geotechnical. Below there is the railway line.
Well, we're burying the dead already here, so I mean, you know.
And I don't even know if those were 20 centimetre trees. Yeah, I certainly don't want to get involved in people's view aesthetics. Not in this bylaw anyway, the trees used in landscapes bylaw maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel kind of conflicted on this one because to Ron's point about a person's home is their castle, and I would prefer government keep on a private business. But I've also seen some instability with trees being taken out, causing an issue. So I get the point. You know, what's the worst case scenario, as you mentioned? Maybe it's not the whole hillside coming down, maybe it's more government intrusion is the worst case scenario. I mean, it's all how you look at it. And I don't think there's a simple answer to this one, because I see the value of, well, maybe back up a bit. If everybody used common sense, this wouldn't be an issue. But there's always some nut who's going to start bringing trees down and it's going to endanger his neighbor.
Oh, well, that's easy. Then we say in here, if you are a nut.
Perfect.
I'll vote for it. It's not even 10 o'clock and this is out of the bag.
Okay, we're not going to solve this. Let's just park that one for now.
I mean, I don't know, just, you know, in terms of quick one here, I mean, it would take an unbelievable amount of convincing to get me to change my viewpoint on this one. And I mean, the fact that Nye's brought, you know, a strong comparison with West Vancouver, I find that personally very interesting. Still don't like it. So
Yeah, this is not West Vancouver. We do things differently out here.
And we have a steeper slope generally.
and,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
so,
one thing we
I mean,
do
as you
differently.
said, we've just gone through a period of, you know, Big Brother knows best kind of thing. And I don't really want to go there now. So unless somebody else really wants to champion this one.
I want to come back to it.
Okay.
Moving on to the next page, the definition of concrete. Do we need to speak about rebar with or without? Under other material? Or does that sufficiently imply? Because I suppose if you're trying to dump concrete with rebar, that's covered by concrete. And rebar is covered by demolition waste, I guess. So,
Undecomposed contaminated organic matter? Iron?
yeah, iron's not organic. Quite the opposite. Okay, over the page on the definition of soil, down to and including the bedrock. So the bedrock, the big piece of rock, the Canadian Shield, surely that's not soil. Down to, yes, I can see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I copied this from
Somebody else. I think we need to maybe look at. I sense us heading to referring this, so perhaps I can just raise some of these things now. But let's see. Maybe we can live with it if there's.
Mm-hmm. What else you got?
Just a textual thing under 7.1g involves stockpiles on land other than residentially zoned land, and that is subject to compliance. And subject to compliance. No, it's not that is. Scratch that is. I read it again. Go ahead. So it's enough to decide on now. We can amend it and give third reading, or we can refer it, or we can. Well, those are our only two options.
Yeah. And this will have to go to Ministry of Mines and Ministry of Environment for approval. So it's probably a month of delay there.
And I'll just point out to you, in case it's not obvious, there are provisions in the definition of soil that bolt a few stable doors, while the horse is still in the stable, actually, in terms of abuse of zoning and so on. It just gives it a little bit of extra teeth. You can't be stockpiling stuff in the wrong zone. Anything you want to add on that observation?
Does that include preloading of piece of soil? You know, when they mount it up, if you've got soft soil, they tend to preload it for a period of time. Does that affect this bylaw?
Yeah, that would be deposit of soil.
But only if it's more than 3 truckloads, 3
Yeah.
dump truckloads.
But it would be a temporary though, as opposed to,
Yeah, so
doesn't matter.
you-
Yeah, we want to know
We
about
would
it.
still need to, we would still need to review and look at geotech, silt control, sediment and erosion control.
But only for 45 cubic meters worth. And above.
27, I think.
27.
Mhm.
Yeah. Three
Dump trucks.
dump trucks. Yeah,
So
3
much
10
for
dump trucks.
preload. Yeah, preload takes a long way.
Mhm.
What's a preload? Sorry.
What's when you stack soil and everything to compact the subsoil to make it a more solid
You
base?
should see it
for
on
the
industrial
foundation.
sites.
Oh, I never realized that's what they were doing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Prior to compacting it.
Yeah, sort of a long-term compaction.
You learn something every day. So what do you want to do? The choice before us is to fix this and give a third reading or refer it. The timing issue is, I don't have all the time in the world, because there's some issues that this bylaw addresses that were either unaddressed before or need to be addressed now.
I suggest that maybe we remove the contentious item B, run it through third reading, and then if we have time to reconsider, maybe we could make an amendment down the road if we've had more time to think.
Rescind
about it.
third reading and fix it and then give it third reading again. That'd work, right, Peter?
Or do you mean adopt it ultimately?
Striking B,
Because if we strike B,
Going to
as
third.
third reading, then it would go off to the ministries. So if the ministries approve it, then if you come back and rescind again.
You have to go back to the
and
ministries.
You have to go back out again.
This is pretty much it, unless we don't
Well-
do it yet.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying what the process would be. You could go through that process somewhere. It could be before adoption, or you could adopt without this clause, and look into it more, consult with the community more as to the pros
I think
and
we know
cons
what the
of this.
community wants.
okay, let's see which mayor's gonna put that one down
And,
for feedback.
There's no
And-
consultation going to be happening in that regard.
And come back to it eventually, amend it down the road. But
Consider the
same
community
process
consulted.
would have to be- So-
You hear what he said? That was mild. No, this would be government knows best.
Well, Peter, your last suggestion is the one I was advocating. It's about removing B, go through the whole process, get the thing approved, and then maybe a future council would like to tackle amendments.
I thought we said no more can kicking down the road.
No, this is,
Was it only once a month?
this is a full-fledged boot.
Okay, well, make a motion.
So be it,
That's not much of
strike B and the amendments Peter would have noted that you, on the commentary made on the other
Fine.
stuff.
So you're prepared to let him decide on the bedrock question?
Yeah, I'll just take out and including.
All right,
So
fine,
down
I'm
to
good with
the-
that. Okay, other than that, Okay, so are we all clear on what the motion is? I haven't asked for a second yet.
Sorry,
We're
just-
basically saying we're okay with clear cuts.
That is what it says.
Yeah.
At least here it says that. We have nothing else would prevent that, right? This is the only,
To be fair, Norm, using the same rationale, you could have a flat property and clear cut all those trees too.
No, except that we were gonna incorporate a 30% grade requirement. So it would only apply on steep slopes.
we could do that as an alternative, using this definition.
Or you can increase the size of the tree. Or both.
Or both. Yeah, I hear you. It's a brave council that makes these kinds of decisions. We need to be courageous. I think if we did a 30 centimeter tree on a 30-degree slope, that would be palatable, understandable. How would it actually be enforced? Somebody wants to cut a tree, and they've got to know. You hear a chainsaw going, by the time you get up there, the tree's down. No permit. And then they're in violation of the bylaw that they didn't even know about. And that will happen. People will be cutting trees down. They do all the time. I hear the chainsaws daily.
This isn't about a person cutting down one or two trees,
Okay, maybe we can say multiple trees.
right? So that in my mind, this is about someone clearing an entire lot, taking it to the extreme, and we have no mechanism to stop that. It's not about a person doing some pruning or wanting to clean up their yard or taking 2 or 3 trees down. We do these things to stop the extreme, to stop someone who just simply won't respect the community's view on what trees mean to Lions Bay. They say, I don't give a shit about Lions Bay and what they think about trees, I'm mowing them all down.
Oh, I don't. Well, then maybe they do know that, but they say
Well,
these
but
trees aren't important.
So that's my perspective on that. That's why I think it is important to have some language around preventing someone to do that.
Okay, how about we say something like more than 6 trees in a 1 month period on a slope greater than 30%.
Why would it matter if it was 1 month and wait another month and do another 6 trees?
Well, but nobody's going. But I wouldn't want them to. I wouldn't want them to.
And why 6?
It's arbitrary. 6 is
Not a good way to.
6 is a job, whereas less than 6 is landscaping.
I think that's not very scientific in terms of the objective of protecting a slope and
Yeah.
protecting structures and people on
Okay.
a slope.
You want scientific? How about an area covering more than X square meters?
What if it just said removal of more than 1 tree over over 30 centimeters on a 30% grade, so you're at least dealing with 2 trees, and you're dealing with a slope that may or may not affect somebody. It's basically a trigger to get somebody to come and look at it. It might not be a case of, no, you can't do that. It might be a case of, you need to get somebody to look at this and figure out how you're going to retain that slope when you cut that tree.
You okay with that?
I don't know.
It handles the clear cut scenario. It handles the slope scenario. It doesn't handle the private tree scenario.
Well, no, it doesn't deal with the private tree, which again, I want to, I mean, go to the vote on this one, but I will be opposed on the tree piece. And just to be practical, I think there's a location that is near Norm's to my house where, for the sake of argument, the lot was clear cut. There was a property built across from Fred's house where, for the sake of argument, the property was clear cut.
Yep.
Is there massive dislike by the community? In the case of where Fred's place, it wasn't about the trees that was the problem. It was the type of house that is on that lot.
Yeah, that's not the purview of.
So that's not the piece here, and we can debate about the house near Norman Mines that's ongoing.
Yeah, the aesthetic elements are not
So,
under
I mean,
our
we're back to
purview.
the clear cut piece here, so.
Yeah, this is
we're
technical.
regulating private property, and I really can't get my head around that.
But if you're gonna clear cut a property, most of the time, that's gonna be because you wanna build a house on
Build a
it.
house.
And that's gonna trigger the soil deposit removal anyways. You're gonna have to get a permit for this
So let's get it through the
anyways.
soil deposit thing.
Well, I mean, so to take that example, the one across from Fred, they clear cut that property, including a 300-year-old maple. and then proceeded to remediate any slope stability issued by curtain walls, retaining walls, things. So, that would come along for the ride on a clear-cut situation, at least on a new build.
And let's be clear on this one, with the complete happiness of the surrounding neighborhood. I beg to, at least my understanding was the complete happiness.
Except for the two immediately adjacent neighbours.
Well, the ones across the road were thrilled because they got a better view. Well, when we built our place, my brother and I knocked down 24 trees to clear the space.
Did you get a permit?
No. You didn't have to do permits for anything back then, other than a building permit.
And that was even
That was
iffy.
debatable.
The building permit of the day would do a drive-by or a phone call, and that was about it. Anyhow, we shouldn't get into that. But we had no slope degradation, we had a step foundation, no slope instability. And actually, I felt at the time, we took down maples and hemlocks, which to me are hazard trees all the time. You don't want them anywhere near your house. I mean, we had big ones. But you go in when you do a massive cut like that, and you remediate it right away by putting in your foundation or doing something like that. I cannot see somebody with an existing house doing a clear cut on the property. I mean, you don't move to Lions Bay to do that.
Doing something stupid, in other words.
Yeah, in that case again, would show up.
I mean, I think that's a valid point, right? I mean, nobody is going to do something dumb, even if they are dumb, because... What was that?
I was saying, well, they do,
Yeah, they do.
unfortunately. A few people.
Okay. Let's have a motion.
I'm on the motion already for the
What did you move?
excluding B and subject.
Taking
to
out the
change.
tree definition
Maybe
altogether.
Just answer me this. Do we have any way to ensure people aren't compromising these lots? Forget about the trees. Is there any other mechanism in place?
Well, the soil removal and addition parts, yes.
On the building permits, the building inspector's gonna say, make sure that wall's 20 feet tall and blah, blah, blah.
And we have rules around, you're not allowed to build 10 small 4-foot walls that you don't need to get engineered. We've changed that because
Okay.
we see a lot of that. They
I mean,
build,
this
they
is
build a
this
40-foot
also you
wall.
have to, I'm a bit ignorant around all the bylaws in Lions Bay, so I'm asking these questions just to get some warm and fuzzies around what mechanisms we do have in place.
We could bring back DPAs, we had one.
Haha.
We are kind of moving there, aren't we?
A tree DPA.
Holistic approach to DPAs, sure.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I don't see it being a real issue. I guess it would be intended to cover the person who's got, a steep slope behind their house, and they're gonna cut down some trees that perhaps stabilize that slope, and that causes a hazard to the person below.
And at this point, the village would have no mechanism to say, stop work.
If there's no
you-
building permit attached, and
Okay.
it wouldn't have really anything to do with the building permit anyways.
No, he just feels one Sunday, so you can't run a chainsaw on Sunday, Saturday. Time to take down that tree.
A lot of the times we're gonna be called to this after the fact.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of Isleview and Alex Laverick and sorry,
Mm-hmm.
strike that. Residents on Isleview that,
Yeah.
Maybe it's running out of battery.
Don't joke.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's
fine.
still recording.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is the scenario I'm concerned about. Somebody takes it and they didn't think it through. Let's just knock this tree down. Of course, the roots will still be there. And so by that time, somebody's going to raise a fuss. And then you can go in on the basis of this bylaw, in fact, and say, hang on a sec, you've just altered the slope. And you now need to pin it or put retaining walls or something. The roots are still there. Nobody's going to dig out the roots. We only do that in this split. So,
There's two sides to this, right? There's also these very, very tall trees that sort of hang over your house. And you've got windstorms. You don't really want these things coming down on your house. Some people may not feel safe having trees like that around.
you got insurance. That's the solution there. Yeah, of course you don't. But this is a construction bylaw. or deconstruction. Yeah, I'll just advise council that, I'm very cognizant of the fact that the trees that didn't exist 60 years ago when Lions Bay was founded, and a lot of people who were here then are still here now, those trees are now 120 feet taller and will kill you dead if they fall on top of you. And we don't actually have provision to do anything about it. Other communities facing this thing have all kinds of arbitration. It also costs $1,000 to remove a big tree. Who pays the $1,000?
$1,000? When's the last time you had a big tree removed?
The two that I told you about.
You got a deal.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, I'm asked for a motion. So
put it forward.
You've made the motion to do all the minor amendments and strike
B.
the consideration of trees altogether. That's
Yep.
4.1b, and then merge A into the definition of alteration of land. Okay, I'll accept that motion. Can I have a second on that one? It's seconded. It's a seconded motion on the table. Is there any discussion? Somebody has to yell out question to make me call the question. Call the question. I call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Motion carries. Mayor Burr opposed? That's just because I like laws and bylaws and rules and interfering with people and telling them what to do and all that stuff.
And you have majority.
Okay, so you've got it. Third reading. It's off to the races on that guy. Okay. Correspondence. Ron. Do it.
Over, yes. Okay.
This should be quick. Yeah.
It must be marketing day in government world. BC Stone, this is a marketing information piece, no response.
Is there any reason why we got 10 copies of the same thing? Did they send 10?
You just can't get enough stone and gravel and sand info.
You got 10, I got 8.
Well, it's numbered. Maybe it's 8. I didn't count them, but it was a lot.
There's a lot. Anyhow,
I was looking for the difference.
I'm gonna roll here. Pam also is doing a marketing thing, so no response on that.
But now hang on. She does say it's very helpful to your team if you're able to provide a copy of your existing project applications. I know that the Clean Water Wastewater 2 plan, which is pending the pipeline, exists. I believe we should send it to them.
The Bayview Drip project minus the water main?
Yep. Just to say, look, we're ready to go. We're waiting. In fact, what I will do is
What's the plan, Mayor?
I'm going to write a letter to Pam, and I need that
Okay.
the design,
So,
or the high level
Shauna?
design.
Carl to write, info from now.
I'll respond to this later.
Thank you.
That's for G2.
G3, oh, G2, sorry. G3, which is the councils on Saturday. I'm going, I know Fred's going.
I'm going.
Norm?
I can't.
Okay,
unfortunately.
done.
Peter, you're obviously not going. Pam and or I, you're welcome to come.
Going. See you at Richmond if you're there. G4. Marketing for the Whistler Conference, May the 9th to 11th. I don't know.
I'm going to defend our resolution on
Good.
average speed over distance.
What's your budget for this, by the way?
0.
Why?
Well, gas money.
2-dayer? You're
Oh, I'll drive back and forth. I'm not going to stay in Whistler for that. Do you know what it costs?
fucking mayor. Yeah, no wonder you're not on TV. Okay, Metro 24er shaping out. This is page 117 of 118. They've asked us to provide individual comments if you choose to do so.
We do not.
We do not. And the last one, R1, the mayor's already responded to this, so we are done with correspondence. I asked that they be received.
I'm just pointing this one out to you. This came in the mail today. It's individual letters, and we were supposed to do something about it, but I think it can wait, but just take a squiz. Okay, thank you for that. A motion to receive correspondence and
Thank you, colleagues.
take action, and a second. All in favor, opposed, that carries. So where are we now?
Public questions and comments.
Public questions and comments. Deirdre, that's you.
No, you can't go to the prom dance.
The lower the mainland L.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, motion to close under 91A, C, E, F, J, and K, and 92B, please. That's the motion, and a second. All in favor, opposed, carried. A motion to take a recess. Nobody needs a leg stretch? Let's go. Okay. Okay, we're returning from closed meeting at 11:59, so that's a good time to ask for an extension for an hour. That's a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed, that carries. And we have at least broken the record, so that's some accomplishment. Okay, so now we are going to reporting out. And yeah, let's do that first, right? Yeah. Okay, so reporting out of the meeting is that council approved a resolution as follows. Peter will read some of the details. I'll do the headline part. Damn it. Here it is. That council resolved to award the Harvey Creek Slide 2 project design and construction to Creus Engineering and North Construction in accordance with the recommendations of staff. And Peter will add some, and also that council authorized the mayor and CAO to execute these contracts in substantially the same form as attached to the report that was seen in closed, and any associated documents pertaining to the fulfillment of the contracts. And just to add some color for public record on the bids received, Peter, over to you.
So the low bid on the original tender was $204,407. That's including a 10% contingency. And the second lowest was $238,441. And the last one was $295,176. As discussed, there were some requirements to reduce the scope, and the unit rates were applied in terms of doing so. The bids were compared after the fact just to reconfirm that there was no changes to the original assessment of the winning bid, and those revised numbers came in at $130,404. The second one was $166,063, and the final one was $204,207. And that's also including a 10% contingency.
Okay, thanks. So that concludes the reporting out of the closed meeting. So now we resume a few remaining items left on the agenda. And that is the readings on bylaws. The first is the 5-year financial plan, bylaw number 542, found on page 63.
I do have an amendment to that. It was one of the tables, it's Schedule B.
Right.
There was just a change to the percentages of revenue. I had done some last minute changes to some of the revenue numbers and didn't update Schedule B. So it needs to be read first and second time with the amended Schedule B.
Right, so that was delivered to... I have major problems with this Schedule B. It's policy is stated as objectives as policies, none of which have been resolved by council.
They were resolved last year. We spent actually quite a bit of time on this last year. Previous to last year, a neighbor had asked me to bring this. The Schedule C was just basically the two schedules and stating we didn't have permissive tax exemptions. And then per the charter, we're required to make it more detailed. And we spent quite a bit of time on this. We talked about the fact that it was at that time we made the recreation mill rate the same as residential.
I remember changing the tax rates, but I don't remember discussing Schedule B wording. Because some of these are not policies that I think reflect council's desire. But be that all as it may, are we still not able to break the revenue sources up into one-time and recurring?
Well, this is required under the charter. They want to see what percent, these are the, as I explained earlier, these are the breakdowns I have to show.
Yeah, as subtotals,
on
I mean.
Schedule A, and I'm required to
Present
show
it like
the
this.
source of the revenues. Yeah, they want to know what percentage of each source of revenue.
Okay, so
guides.
as Ron knows all too well, and I'm sure you guys understand as well, what we call as revenue is in fact not revenue. It's proceeds from sale of assets. It's loans. They're actually balance sheet items, not revenue. In fact, I was going to propose after the second paragraph where it says 3,124,000 of net proceeds from the sale of village-owned property to be transferred to a special reserve on the basis that, unlike most accounting standards, PSAB requires proceeds from grants, loans, and asset dispositions to be reported as revenue. Why? Because the public's reading this and it makes no sense.
There's nothing to do with PSAB. PSAB actually does not require it to be recorded as revenue. This is not on the financial statements. This is purely for budget. And the charter is clear that if you, proceeds from loans are revenue, because it's something you don't have to tax for. This isn't financial statement related. This is the charter and it's for budgets. And these are the categories I have to show.
Okay, I can live with that. Although I don't like it. But, okay, so then the policies, which I don't remember setting, but the first one is the annual user rates for water, blah, 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 utilities are established to cover all operating and capital costs of the utility, including amortization.
No.
So, should we not say that, excluding amortization?
Well, amortization isn't an operating cost. So we're saying operating and capital costs of the utility.
Amortization is not an operating cost.
No, it's a non-cash item.
I know it's not cash, I understand that, but it's an operating cost.
Okay, if we want to have this discussion, this is a philosophical discussion about what your policies are. This was a direction I got last year. If you want to change it, we can't change it at 10 after midnight. We'll have to do it at the next meeting and not do the 2 readings. And then we'll have to have 2 special meetings. I mean, this is a big discussion on how council sees their source of funding and...
I'm asking if
what
we
they
can
want.
put the words excluding amortization in that
No,
sentence.
I wouldn't. But you were talking just in terms of council hasn't agreed to this, isn't what you believe.
Oh,
If
I'm
you're
prepared
going to go in
to-
that direction, then I think we need to
I mean,
table it.
You know, I'm a voice in the wilderness, so I'm not gonna beat my head against the wall.
I'm out of my depth.
That's fair enough. I mean, if council is prepared to adopt this as is, fine by me. I'll be voting against it.
Yeah, I find the policies, or what we have discussed, is safe. The first policy there, that's exactly what we asked for. Instead of getting away with, what do you call it? We just have our fees now for
Yes.
covering all the things. There's no using general revenue to pay for any of the services and stuff, and that's.
Oh no, that one I'm fine with. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And the second one is a given, and the
Third one repeats the objective.
pretty much, yeah. So I don't think there's anything that I would criticize in there at all.
Okay, so I mean, do we want to repeat the objective? There's a reason for that.
I don't know, being set, I don't care.
Yeah. And if it doesn't bother people. So then my question on the distribution of property taxes, you refer to a property class as recreation non-profit above, but in the table showed only as recreation. Is there a reason for that?
No, that's a mistake. We don't have nonprofit, so I should just get rid of the nonprofit up above.
Okay. And what do we set the class multiple in the second policy? What do we set it for business? That would presumably be a policy that we've set. So
You have it on business, so that's my point. Last year, we made the attempt to set the recreation. I mean, these are the rates we've had, and now we changed the recreation last year. Business, we've just kept it, because there hasn't been a clear direction on that.
Okay, so the policy is we set the class multiple for recreation, non-profit, recreation only, to residential, and set the class multiple for utilities to the maximum, and we're silent on business?
Yeah, Which is typical. There's not always policies on each. I mean, I did a lot, when I had to redo this
I
last
see,
year.
okay, got it.
I looked at a lot of other ones.
Fair
And
enough.
that's not to say we can't change this, and I mean, I can bring this forward.
I mean, I would think if I was a business, I'd like to know what the policy is on my tax rate. But, okay. And the numbers changed because between the old Schedule B and this Schedule B?
Oh, it was just this first one. I had put Brunswick, not Brunswick, I'm sorry, Kelvin Grove property I originally had in the 2019 budget. But then I just set with the revenue for it, flowing to a reserve. I changed that to 2018. It had a net zero impact on taxation, but the reason I did it, it looks like there is a likelihood we may sell it this year. And if I didn't have it in the budget, we would have had to do a budget amendment.
Okay.
And I just completely forgot. It was my mistake. I forgot to change the impact that had on the percentages.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, any other questions?
Could you go over why the amortizations couldn't be tucked in here somewhere on the policies?
I can, if you want it, at this point, excluding amortization.
Please. Thank you.
Because we certainly charged it in the financials and back it out again for cash. Okay, we're ready for the question? We don't have a motion yet, so we need a motion for first and second reading of the bylaw as stated. Motion and a second. That's a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? I'm opposed. Motion carries. And we are now going to the tax rates bylaw. Less controversial. Page 69. You've seen the report. This is as agreed in passing the budget, right, Pam? It's exactly as we expect.
Basically, the mill rates that we need to get the taxation that we budgeted for.
Yeah.
And it always has to be, we have to do, always have to do the bylaw, sorry, I can't talk, the budget first, and then the tax rates.
Yeah. So it's exactly as that's just what comes out in the wash for the mill rates. So I'll ask for a motion to read the tax rate bylaw number 543 of 2018 first and second time. That's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And this. What are we going to do about this? What did we vote the soil deposition bylaw? How did we?
It's,
We did that already.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we just took we wanted to discuss. Got it. Okay, fine. Correspondence we've done. There's no new business. There's no public questions or comments. We've done the reporting out. I'll ask for a motion of adjournment. The meeting adjourned at 12:16. It wasn't as bad as I thought. Still the record. Thank you.